Ron Melford.
And we'll tell you which mic we're using here.
Both of them should work.
Yeah, they both work.
Both of them.
I think that one might be a little louder.
I'll give you that one then, Warren.
And now for our karaoke duet.
Well, welcome back everybody who was here last year for the banquet and tournament that we had. And we're going to top it this year. We have more inductees in the Hall of Fame.
The most ever.
Yes, in fact, we're catching up after many years of inducting hardly anyone. And of course, we have our celebration of the 50th anniversary of the U.S. Open, which we had at the height of the Bobby Fischer boom. And Warren's going to especially tell us a lot about that. He was very involved in.
He's right here.
And some great success drawing Grandmaster Benko, but we'll hear more about that. But we also have an illustrious, I can't think of a better word, an illustrious group of attendees here this year who were not here last year. We have 4 Grandmasters. 3 International Masters. More national champions of every variety that you could possibly name. We have a dozen state champions, lots of national masters, and several children who are better than all of them.
Sadly true.
Pick up some of your own size.
The number of title players who have lost to our children in the last year in Blitz, Classical, and whatever else, I can't begin to tell you. But let me read from our Nebraska chess newsletter that goes back at least 60 years and that Bruce has gotten out of the archives and turned into algebraic notation and everything else for us. But here's what it says in 1975. This is from Bud Narveson, who many of you cherish, writing about the U.S. Open.
Also a member of the Hall of Fame.
Also a member of the Hall of Fame. Let it be noted, he was an English major. English professor, I guess,
Professor.
at the university. Let it be noted that no record can be made of the countless hours and energy given by Bart Lewis and Lauren Schmidt to making the Open a success. Bart as general chairman and Lauren as treasurer. So Lauren, thank you, and isn't it special to see Bart's name mentioned?
Especially Bart, but I'll be talking more about Bart during the induction because he's one of the inductees who's waited a long time to be recognized. But I'll just say one thing about him right now. Aside from all of his work on the U.S. Open, Bart was, for young teenage and early 20s me, just about the coolest guy I had ever known, and he still is one. With that Van Gogh goatee and mustache, and he's the only adult that I knew that fluently used Mad Magazine references in his conversations. Man, Bart was cool.
Bart was. And Bart is 90 years old now. And is still healthy and was going to join us by Zoom, but he had a family member pass away at the last minute. But we will be speaking to Bart as if he is here through that lens right there. And he will be inducted into the Nebraska Hall of Fame later this evening.
And I'll have the pleasure of doing the introduction for Bart.
Yes, and I'm sorry to mention people who couldn't make it at the last minute, but also the Dean of Nebraska Chess, John Tomas, who joined us last year, if you remember. Don Tomas, yes, Tomas, not Thomas, Don Tomas, who in the 1960s inspired such figures as John Watson. And it's, like I say, the Dean of Nebraska Chess will also be watching us through the video on replay. He's got out of the hospital, but he's doing fine. And we will have an award for him this evening as well. We have National Master John Drexel, who is going to join us by Zoom. Did that happen?
I Are they
He
going
was here
to?
last year too, wasn't he? Or he's
We
young.
can't show.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
John, how do you get that little tiny box?
welcome, John. John goes back to the Fisher boom. Been a fixture in Nebraska chess for 50 years, and as I say, reached the master level. And the final person I want to mention who will be watching us through the video is, of course, John Watson, the greatest figure in Nebraska chess history, not only as a player, but as a preeminent opening theorist and then later a philosopher of chess. And I will be elaborating on that when we give away some of his books later. John apologizes for just an immovable conflict that he had this year. He, of course, was with us last year, but he definitely is going to be watching the replay. Joel Benjamin would have been with us. This was his breakout tournament in 1975, but it's the 40th anniversary of his Yale class reunion. So what are you going
No priorities at all.
But we have just a tremendous a group of people who are also here in person. And our purpose tonight, of course, is to have the Hall of Fame induction. That's our main purpose. And we'll get to that in the second half of the program. We're also going to highlight the achievements since last year. You'll remember that last year's reunion had a very specific purpose. And that was to draw on the unbelievable success of Nebraska chess in the 1970s. You know, we're less than 0.5% of the US population. But we had 10 times that level of achievement, punching above our weight. And we wanted to introduce all of those great players and all that great history to the current organizers and players in the United States, in Nebraska. And wow, have we made progress in the last year. And we'll go over that. We'll celebrate the 50th anniversary. We'll have some special awards. Bruce will come up later and give away some awards that he was very much the brainchild of. And Bruce worked tirelessly on this event this year and last year. A lot of people come up with ideas. Bruce gets them all done. And we thank you, Bruce. Yes. And Gary Calden. Where is Gary? Gary was also on our three-person organizing group and did a tremendous amount. Thank you, Gary, for all the brainstorming and thinking about this event. Dan put together the slides again this year. You'll forgive me, I just had eye surgery, so if I often tonight look like I'm searching around, it's not because I don't recognize you all.
He's there somewhere. There he is.
There's Dan. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. And Kyle, who put together the slides and got the clicker to work. Where's Kyle? Yeah, Kyle, right, of course. And I also want to mention Allison Hengen, who is our media person. Last year, she got us on TV and in newspapers, and this year she got us on the Lincoln Journal and the Omaha World Herald. Where is Allison back there? Yes. Allison has children playing in the tournament, Clover, and she's the Mater Campione of our co-state champion this year, Luke Canyon. And of course, just seeing old friends, making acquaintances sometimes of people that we haven't seen in decades. And maybe at the end of the day, that's the most important thing that we're doing here. Well, distinguished attendees, we have 4 grandmasters. And we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the US Open. What grandmaster would you most want to have? How about the grandmaster who won the most recent US Open and the Grand Prix, Grandmaster Joe?
Yeah.
Grandmaster Joe has played for the China Olympiad team, and we know what a powerhouse
It's not easy to get
China is. No, not at all. He's gone deeply
It's not the same as Japan.
Well, yeah, Japan's tougher.
We're gonna have some other Olympic team members, we'll come back to that. But China went deeply into the World Cup and was a grandmaster. I can't tell for sure whether it was age 17 or 18 from the first base, but wow. And we have two grandmasters from the chess powerhouse of Armenia. And we've all followed Armenian chess since world champion Petrosian, Vaganian, Moronian.
Right.
Chess, I understand, is
Olympic championship teams.
yes, won the Olympiad. Chess, as I understand it, is required in the schools.
As it should be.
So we have, in alphabetical order, Grandmaster Gregorian, who has been the champion of Armenia. He was the champion of Europe under age 16 and was the Grandmaster again at age 17 or 18.
For those of us with names, what's his first name? Is it Carol?
Karen.
Karen.
Can you stand up?
Gregorian.
Yes.
And Grandmaster Petrosian, who will be our first board. He also has been the champion of Armenia. He was the world champion under age 18. And a grandmaster at age 18 or 19. 3 teenage grandmasters. Do you remember those of you, my age in the 70s or 80s when we were waiting for the next Bobby Fischer? Who was going to be the next person who could be a grandmaster like Fischer or Spassky at 17 or something? I mean, we were 3 teenage grandmasters in the room. Unbelievable.
And maybe some future ones.
Yes, more about that, along with some warnings if you happen to get paired. And from the Czech Republic, we have Grandmaster Plot. Grandmaster Plot has been multiple times champion of the Czech Republic, which is also a very strong chess nation, as you know. And he was an international master at what age? What shall we say? 14. International master at 14. So we are quite honored by all 4 of you being here. We will have on board 1 for Grandmaster Petrosian, we will have a special chess set tomorrow. I guess I have it too far away, but it was a set that was used in the 2018 Sankerfeld Cup in every round. Grandmasters Carlsen, I believe, Onen, there were at least several world champions who had played on that set, so we'll be proud to have you use that and defend it successfully. For the next 4 boards 2 through 5, we have these beautiful Zagreb sets that were used in the 1959 candidates and in many prestigious Eastern European tournaments thereafter.
The cross, that's nice.
You're pointing out this cross here. Well, I'll just explain a little bit of the history. This was a Yugoslav chess set that was meant to deal with ethnic tensions, and they had a interchangeable. You could put a cross or an Islamic symbol here. That was Marshal Tito's great idea. But anyway, it became a fantastic iconic chess set. This will be used on boards 2 through 5. And here's the deal, Grandmasters. There's 4 sets.
Like, can I say just be also in Czech, like quite famous chess set, which is only from, I don't know, Alexander play. So more than 100 years. So we don't have, I mean, call it like chess cup, Wolf Cup, which is like pretty famous. So maybe future.
Okay, well, fantastic.
Yugoslavia, and I have one friend in Serbia who's selling them. So.
Oh, there you go.
Wow, okay, great. Well, these 4 sets will be gifts to you, Grandmasters, unless you lose. If you lose, the person who beats you gets the set. And if you draw somebody under 2,200 USCF, they get the set.
Pressure.
My guess is it goes to somebody on the table back there.
Great.
2200 and under, because I have a floor.
No international, no international masters seal the set, Elliot.
Nice try.
Yeah, yeah. Very close.
Well, and speaking of Elliot, let's move on to our international masters. And Elliot, if I can quote a famous song introduction, let me introduce a friend and/or idol of us all, Mr. I Am, Elliot Winslow. Elliot Winslow was a master in the 1970s in the Midwest and at the height of the Fisher boom. And this was a time when it was hard to find a master between Chicago and California. And Elliot was an inspiration to all of us. And an opening theory specialist, writing in minutiae in those informants from Yugoslavia, and on cutting edge openings. He was the Walter Brown of the 1970s on the opening theory. And we all remember the brilliant rook sacrifice. Rook takes G7 against international master Bill Martz in Sioux City in that four pawns attack, Aleutian, in 1973. Elliot also came to Lincoln in 1973 and won the Midwest Open, which is the Nebraska State Championship. There were 110 people at that event because it was, again, in the Fisher years. He beat one of our inductees tonight and one of our great masters, Mike Blankenau. Where's Mike? Yeah. Sorry to introduce you, Mike, for a loss. But, and here's what ChatGPT says about Elliot.
I'm
It
6'7".
says he has deep strategic understanding and tremendous analytic ability in backgammon. International Master Winslow is a world-class backgammon player. When I say world-class, I mean Super G. So, Elliot, thank you for coming back from San Francisco to be here with us. It means an awful lot, I can tell you, when everybody really needs it. And you know, it's 2025, so why don't we have a little more fun with ChatGPT, or maybe it was Grok, I forget which. We try to reproduce this in laboratory. I'm going to introduce a couple.
Yeah.
And that is International Master Doug Root, and Nebraska's own Hall of Fame member, WIM Alexei Rudolph Root, who we're sitting, oh, you're up right up here. You can see how bad it was 2 weeks ago, right? Okay. And here's what the all-knowing AI says about this couple in response to my question. Who are the greatest married couples in U.S. chess history?
More here.
And you know what came back first?
Wait a minute.
This couple, International Master Doug Root and WIM Alexei Root, are a standout married couple in U.S. chess history. Alexei's multifaceted contributions, winning the 1989 U.S. Women's Championship, representing the U.S. in the interzonal and Olympiads. Her extensive chess education work and her prolific chess writing make her one of the most accomplished women in U.S. chess history.
Okay, Doug.
Big good sport, Doug. Her marriage to Doug, a long-time international master. And let me pause and embellish there a little bit. Doug was twice invited to the United States Junior Invitational Championship and finished as high as second at the peak of the Fisher boom years. People like Jay Whitehead and Paul Whitehead and Joel Benjamin and those sorts of folks competing with. So we mean it when we say long-time prestigious international master. And even recently finishing second in the 2021 National Tournament of State Champions strengthens their legacy as a chess power couple.
Oh, very
Don't let his mild exterior fool you.
So a trivia question, if you ask about the world, what does it say is the top married chess couple in the world history?
Oh, my word.
Elliot might get that, I wonder, anybody else?
So when you mentioned the US, I thought of coconut. Oh,
Oh, no, I appreciate it.
Who did I hear from?
Oh, yeah, that's a guess. Grishik and Logno is a good guess.
That's a good guess, and maybe it's right. You should argue with the AI.
Wojciech also very strong. Wojciech, Poland, Polish.
Oh, Wojciech.
Wojciech, those.
Okay, well, this
Well,
says,
Carlson and whoever he married.
well, you'll forgive me, I'm gonna give it the American pronunciation that we all gave. Maya Chiburdinidze, which I suppose is really Chibur.
That's pretty close.
Chiburdinidze or something.
Yeah.
And Grandmaster Jurgenidze was what got the world, but you guys are the United States.
Oh, well, I mean, Nakamura and Tusa Percussion, I can think of several couples. But we're the best couple in this room. Yes. No, chess-wise.
Who've always been American players.
There's that woman that, I don't remember where she's from, and she must have married like 5 different English grandmasters.
Oh, yes,
Oh.
Susan
That
Ashell.
should
Yeah.
count for something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you get to add them all up?
No,
Yeah, of course, we're
Goodman
going
was
on.
the United States all in a woman.
We're nowhere close to the top. But we're the top chess couple in this room, so we'll go with that.
Well, you're being quite modest. The AI doesn't want it. So, continuing with really homegrown talent, of course, we have International Master Keaton Kira.
Oh,
Really?
here what?
Is it Kira? Because I
Have I mispronounced all these years?
before I knew you,
What's your-
I just assumed it was Kiev, you were Polish.
Kira, right?
That's good.
Yeah.
But where is the name from?
Oh.
So why isn't it Kiev?
For the same reason that John doesn't turn his name Fedorovich.
Nobody would listen to it. It's bad.
You know, Keaton is the greatest Nebraska chess player of at least the last generation. An international master, he has a couple grandmaster norms. We'll hear in a little bit when we talk about state champions and national champions, some of the uncanny streaks that he has. And he's diversified into being a great chess coach now too. So thank you for coming back again from the Bay Area. Those are our grandmasters and our items.
I was afraid we-
I think it's time for me to talk about Warren Schmidt. One of the
Trouble.
One of the few greatest players in Nebraska history as well. FIDE master, correspondence international master, first board for Japan in the Olympiad, first board for the University of Nebraska when we won the Pan American Championship. And we were a Tom Osborne level dynasty for many years there, so it's not about just that particular year. We had others who were on the team when it was in the top couple, Mike Blankenau, Gary Colvin.
Yep. Mike played on a 4th place team and a 2nd place team. Gary played on a 2nd place team and other teams.
Rich Chess, who wasn't
Of course, Rich and Mike, who played on our key championships team, John Rose. Yeah, we had a streak of at least 5 years in the top 4. Basically.
Unbelievable. And again, for every 170 people in the United States, one lives in Nebraska.
Which one?
Not you, Elliot.
Well, a number of other title players here. I'll just say I'm a senior master and have a FIDE master rating, but didn't play in enough games yet to have the FIDE master title, which tells you how old I am from back in the days when all the tournaments were not FIDE rated. We have a number of national masters here, and we will see them on the slide when we introduce all the state champions. except one I want to particularly call out, which is Paul Rauer. And where is Paul? There, right back here. Paul. I've been wanting to meet Paul for 33 years. When I first started reading about him, he won the national junior high championship, which was a personal tragedy in my life. Finishing second with a 1 game to Risitano, but I had a Wilder win.
He beat Wilder.
Paul went and finished it off out of the great school, Brownell Talbot, which also produced John Watson.
Some guy.
And Mike Langdown also was a teacher there. And and Paul also went on and played in the U.S. Junior Invitational Championship. No small feat. You have to be among the top 8 under 21. So fantastic. Yes, and?
I said, well, the national invitational thing.
The National Invitational thing.
Which one was he in?
Well, he was in the. I'll let you speak for yourself. But you were in the U.S. Junior Invitational. Yeah, which I think is a great achievement in the National Junior High Champion.
Yeah, just getting there.
Which adds also, of course, I should have mentioned that John Watson was the National High School Champion, and we'll talk about Keaton in a few minutes, and Joseph Wan, who's not here this evening, with an unbelievable number of titles that we have. So, excuse me for spending so much time on this slide, but I really want to relish it. It's unbelievable who we have here. National champions, we have John Stepp, who was the national deaf champion. Alexi, as we already mentioned, was the U.S. Women's champion. And then let's talk about national titles scholastically. Keaton won 6 years in a row. His grade level?
If they hadn't held him back all those years.
6 years in a row. He's the national champion at his grade level.
Yeah.
It's just incomprehensible to have that kind of.
Nebraska, no one else was showing up.
Yeah, and Joseph Wan, who probably won't be with us this weekend, but is thinking about it. He was the 3rd grade and the 6th grade national champion recently. And we have so many state champions. Excuse me, I have to look at my notes. I mean, national champions. Look at my notes a second and see if I'm forgetting anyone. I already mentioned the University of Nebraska. Yeah, so we have just a tremendous achievements there. The state champions. Let me.
Everybody stand.
They can stand, but let me advance so that they can see their names in all the glory.
I was just thinking everybody.
These are the state champions who, for the most part, are here this evening. Please stand.
Yay!
The Nebraska.
Kenny's on the list.
Kenny's not on the list. Yeah, he and Lynn's got tied in the, it should be.
Oh, please stand. Please stand. Of course. Sorry about that.
Yes. Co-champs are champs in this state.
No, he's not a state. Scholastic.
So, let me point out some things about this list. Keaton, remember the guy who won 6 national scholastics in a row? Won 9 state championships in a row.
Is that good?
Can you imagine never blundering?
Well, that would be nice.
Winning 9 in a row? And as we've mentioned Brownell Talbot. But as we know from last year, at least a third of the people in this room are from Lincoln East, including a couple inductees this evening. So 9 championships in a row. Now, some more trivia. After that, well, before I say it, those who won four in a row, we had somebody who won 24 in a row. That was Howard Ullman from 1917 to 1941. I tossed out a trivia question of who's beloved to a lot of us, who overlapped with him, broke that streak in 1941 or 2. We overlapped with him. Many of us in this room have played with him.
You're the archivist.
Yeah. No, actually, Bob's the archive.
Bob, I gave this challenge to Bob earlier this evening. Did you come up with it, Bob?
I haven't come up with it yet.
Well, then give us a wild guess. Omaha player.
It wasn't Spence, was it?
No.
Delmar.
Delmar Saxton.
That's right.
Rich and Bruce got it. Okay, so apropos of that, let's move on to who has won 4 state championships. There's 3 people who've done it. Ben Fabricant, who is not here. John Tomas, the Dean of Chess. We have one person who won 4 state championships in a row who's in this room this evening. Can anybody other than that person name who that is?
And he was lead singer for Journey.
I'll guess,
That's a hint.
I'll guess Ridge Perry.
That's Rich Berry.
One of those Perry brothers.
Kevin Fleming did too, by the way. Kevin won 6. So. Not in a row. Not in a row.
No, not in a row. No, this is in a row.
Oh, you said in a row.
This is in a row. This is in a row.
Oh.
And we have a streak going right now of someone who has won or co-champion 3 in a row, so is going for his 4th next year. That is Nick LaCroix. Where's Nick? Last year we got tremendous coverage. We have the Chess Life editor who lives in Nebraska, John Hartman. John will probably be here over the weekend to say hi. And we have the Chess Life online editor. Can you believe this in Nebraska? We have J.J. Lang, who also basically dominated the tournament last year. Winning the Blitz tournament and second in the overall thing. 2580 performance rating overall or something. I don't know. It's crazy. Do not get into his time scramble against J.J. Lang.
Did you win the Blitz tournament?
That's what I'm saying. He won the Blitz tournament. Absolutely. Yeah, I remember game 5, unfortunately. It was a good King's Indian for a while.
I heard it's better at the end.
Did I flag out in round 5? Is that what it was? I don't remember. I don't know. You
All
won.
right then games are
You
terrible.
won, that's all I remember. Okay, and then, of course, let's have everybody who attended the 1975 US Open, please stand.
I attended, but I didn't play.
Attended or played?
My parents.
Lauren, we had a slide.
That's 10 years old.
Standings in the tournament. You want to talk about that now or later when you talk?
Yeah.
Lauren's going to tell us all about the US Open, but let's give a little bit of a preview right now. Here was the cross table. It might be a little hard for you to read, but on the tournament.
As you can see, at the top of the tournament are a couple of grandmasters, but not as many as we have here. There are a bunch of future grandmasters there were only 3 at the tournament, those 2 and then Isgar. But at the top, Benko and Lombardi. And if you notice at the early rounds, both of them got nicked for draws.
By who?
Well, Lombardi got nicked by William Alexander of Nebraska.
We've forgotten that.
Low-rated expert. Now, why doesn't he appear on this top list? Because I beat him in the last round. If he beat me, he'd be on this top list here anyway. But we have some other names that are really closely connected to both Nebraska and to some of our Midwest players. I'll come back to some in a minute, but I'll go right. The ones that are in red, right there up at the top was somebody Alexi would know quite well. Uncle Vic, Victor Pooples,
Oh, Lord.
originally out of Lincoln, Nebraska.
Really?
Yeah, he played in that 54.
He beat Fisher.
He beat Fisher, the Latvian,
And then he goes to
in Fisher's debut national tournament. And of course, Victor is still going strong, though he didn't win it. Somebody was pointing out he was playing just this week in the Washington Senior Championship for qualifications for the National Senior. So Vic's still going strong and still calling everybody young whippersnappers as he has for 50 years. But he's right there at the top. So a Nebraska player, I don't know how to count him as in all the ways, because his greatest glories come after he left, like coming back to Nebraska and finishing right there at the top. The other players that are marked, I'll come back to one in a minute as soon as I get down there. We've got John Watson right up there.
Sure, 10th, I think.
Yeah, right in there. And then just a little below that, we got some guy named Elliot Winslow. So, International Master Winslow was here, of course. And
But I have almost no relation.
but another thing I just going to mention this time is right at the top there, right under the top two Grandmasters, we have Frank Thornley.
Yes.
Who was a top player of that period. And if Elliot, if you'd like to speak for just a moment about Master Thornley.
Well, he happens to be my roommate. He also, if you had thought to invite him, he wouldn't have been able to come because he's in a nursing facility. He can't stand, let alone walk at the moment, but we have hopes. But and on occasions, he's a little confused. This gabapentin stuff they give him, it doesn't, you know, it gets a little confused of where he is even. But just the day before I came here, I was on the phone with him, and I mentioned that's where I'm going off to Nebraska to this 50th anniversary of the U.S. Open. He said, "Oh, I played in that," and he lit up, and he went on and on and on, completely lucid about the tournament and the events. He doesn't remember me being here, but that's I can understand. I mean,
You were down like 15th or something, you know.
but I had met him earlier in the year, and I beat him in the last round of a tournament in Tempe, Arizona, which he still remembers that game. I have it on the phone. But so we should have known each other, but somehow, you know, the memory didn't fit in. And he pointed out that he's listed as fourth, but it's fourth through how many places? I didn't actually catch that. Well, not so bad, actually. It's only like a couple.
Well, there are 400 people, but we only went down to the top 50.
No, but I mean, he's fourth through what?
Ninth.
You can't do that.
No.
Fourth, here he is, he's fourth, and then Vince Garber won,
And then Watson is the top tiebreaker of the next
So
group.
4th
Yeah.
through 9th, yeah. 4th
Yeah,
through 9th.
okay, well, that's not so bad.
With some pretty good players, with Bisgeyer, Peters, Eugene Meyer,
Yeah, finished ahead of
minor people.
Yeah, he was constantly surprising me because we mentioned somebody and he said, "Oh, I beat him." He was an impressive player and very, very knowledgeable. He has quite a library of chess books. He's read them all.
Well, please send him
Yeah.
our regards. And I'll have to say for Lauren that he's the first Nebraskan, edging out tonight's inductee, Mike Blankenau. Both had
Sorry, Mike.
who both had excellent tournaments.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we both got wins in the last round.
Yeah.
Mike, did you draw in the last round?
That's probably
Looks like a win.
Yeah.
I just want to say something real quickly, having been a lawyer most of my life, about Eugene Meyer. People don't know who Eugene Meyer
Oh,
was
yes, I do.
in real life. In real life, Eugene Meyer's family owned the Washington Post. We're talking about
Wait,
Watergate years
Wait,
ago.
what?
Yes.
So you didn't know everything, did you?
That's from ChatGPT.
And Eugene Meyer, I can say, is probably the biggest figure in American jurisprudence, in effect on the courts in the last 40 years. Yes. And we'll have some pictures.
Depends on how you
We
look at it.
have a picture and a bit of him playing Benko in August of '75, and I think he was 2 weeks later, he's headed off to Yale Law to start that career. So much like Ken Rogoff in economics, if you know Ken Rogoff or Tyler Conway. Yeah, who were big figures in American public policy. Okay, achievements since last year, we move on, because of course we want to have a lot of time for the inductees. The lengthy chess life coverage, and we want to thank you again, JJ, for that. You wrote an article, and we had, I think my picture was in Chess Life twice, and it's never been in before ever. You know, thank you. And you had like 4 pages of stuff, and a couple of articles, and it was absolutely
I believe
fantastic.
Alexi wrote some of that as well.
Yeah, and Alexi's done a lot of publicizing, and Alexi wrote that. That was in my notes, Alexi, to mention that to you, and I really, really appreciate that. We've had active Facebook groups. Oh, Lord, you've really used those. And my mom. My mom sends me some message in the morning. Did you see yourself on Facebook? You know, or respond? Yeah.
Well, they've been sharing all these old gambits, some of which I edited, and some which I didn't, and old cross tables that they just call up so many memories, and in a few cases, things that I didn't remember at all. Like this is totally individual, but the '72 Midwest Open, I've thought for 50 years that I finished with the same score as Roger Anderson, because we played the next to last round and drew. And I only found out later that he was co-champion, because I was paired up against him. He was higher rated, but I was the top in the next score group or something, or just Jack didn't like me. No, I still would have been 4th place like I was, but like I was. Well, I guess I would have been tied for 3rd if I won, because that would have knocked out one of those guys. But it was a big tie. But the thing was, I never realized that he was co-champion, because they didn't talk about those kinds of things. But Bruce getting these things around,
You
and
could have
a lot
offered
of
something shady, and then, you know, you could have dumped him, and you could have been clear champion.
that's true. But
Spoken like a document.
that's true. I could have thrown that game to him, but then it would have had to play either McClellan or Watson in the last round.
No, it wasn't the last round. I think so.
I played in the next to last round. Right. So now I won my last game, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm tied for 4th, and it just occurred. I always thought just he had higher tie break when I saw him in the cross table. I never actually looked at the result, but seeing those things in there. There's lots of just little things like that, remembering players and games, and Bruce asking, does anyone remember this person, that person? And you got listened to lots of stories from some of our inductees, like Rich Perry, but last year inductee Gary Colvin, and Bruce himself, and Mike. Mike participates a lot in there. So it's really interesting to just have that kind of engagement. So even though for decades I wasn't a part of Nebraska chess, starting from last year with this game, I felt like a part of Nebraska chess again. Instead of some guy living off on the edge of the world where I've been for, oh my God, 40 years in different places.
So, you know, and a lot of that is, Bruce, you've been the backbone of those Facebook groups, but especially the historical work that you've done on all of our old journals, the Gambit, the archives. Bruce hangs out at the Nebraska State Historical Society. Seriously, I've been there with him, and they know him. Oh, welcome, Bruce. You know, would you like a cup of coffee? And here's your chair.
You're welcome there?
Yes, yes. And you know, he's turned everything into algebraic notation, which some of you know, I just went to Reykjavik a couple weeks ago and saw Bobby Fischer's all his stuff. He does descriptive notation in game 1 after he blunders. All the writing gets really big and it's descriptive. But Bruce has turned it all into algebraic and so many other things. And along with Bob, I mean, really has been, you know, the Nebraska State, you know, chess historians. And you're obviously with a bunch of people who value this heritage. And we thank you so much for what you've done. We've also had a philanthropist, Craig Wilkins, who held the first annual Wilkins Cup this last year. And we definitely thank him, and he'll continue to do more. Bruce had the idea of a journalism scholarship, and he'll give it out later this evening. We've had a lot of statewide promotional activities. Bruce has really rehabilitated high school chess. You know, it used to be like, you know, any other sport. Every school played every other school, and he rehabilitated it in Omaha. Millward North won this year, but very much your brainchild, Bruce. And we thank you for that energy. Out in central Nebraska, Kearney, that club is really taking off. Is Eric, where's Eric? Is Eric here tonight?
Did he make it tonight?
He's registered, but
Okay, well, Eric Ring has been a great organizer out there. He's having tournaments with, 40 people, et cetera. And we're going to do some things to help, chess, continue to develop out there. And how about this? We have the U.S. Game 30 and the U.S. Game 60 championships coming to the Omaha metro area in is it September? Yeah, September 27th and 28th.
Cool.
Sita Rahman.
He wasn't able to make it tonight either. So.
Okay, all right. Sita Rahman put that together. Wow, two big national championships will be here.
you gonna win him, Rod?
Not at that speed. Game 90 is where I start thinking about it. And now the next thing I'm really excited about is what I'll call our Reshevskis. And where did the clicker go before we get to this key point? Did I put it in my pocket? No. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here's the clicker.
I'm gonna sit down while you go through all these folks.
Oh, sure.
This will be good. I wanna look at all of them.
Yeah. So,
I curse them.
you'll remember the legend of Sammy Reshevsky, the 8-year-old. He's actually 10. This is very short. But the legend is that he's 8
Was
years
always
old.
short.
Yes.
He came back to
and he
70 years later.
he beats Pillsbury and he's getting these simuls and a great prodigy. Well, last year we issued a challenge at this event to have a Nebraska resident get on one of the top 50 lists for an age group. Top 50, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, under 16, whatever, right? And we have 1/170th of the US population. So that's a reasonable challenge to get somebody onto the top 50. And we had nobody at that point, 12 months ago.
Dramatic pause.
Dramatic pause, if there ever would be a dramatic pause. What we wound up with is the number one, out of the blue. And this is post-COVID. There's a lot of great 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
Number one in the United States, Sid. So, Sid, could you stand, please? And wow, if you applaud for Sid.
And now could you pronounce your
But it
name
keeps
first?
going. A lot of people lost last year to 9-year-old Guru. Blitz tournaments, etc. But don't laugh yet. He was invited to represent the United States in the World Under 10 Championship. And in a marathon 90-move game that I annotated, and it was played at a 2,500 level for 90 moves. He defeated Grandmaster Dmitry Gurevich in a classic design. These are Reshevsky level achievements. It just brings great honor and pride and happiness to us. And congratulations, to your parents as well. And it doesn't end there. We've had 2 others reach the age list challenge. Rakshith at age 13 and Nick Sheath at age 11. Please stand. Great achievements, and if you're doing that at 11 or you're doing that at 13, I mean, what can we expect at 16?
16, 7.
Keep it up.
It's like 11 years. Skill rate.
And then, as I mentioned, our current state champion, Luke, won the state championship at age 15. Luke, please stand. And I think that's, it's close to a record. I don't know, how old were you, Keaton? 14? 14. And Joseph Lawn was 12 years old, and like I said, there's a chance he might be able to visit this weekend. But it comes in a long tradition of chess prodigies we've had. This one there, of course, starts with John Watson, the national high school champion. Rich Chess was ranked 13th in the United States under age 21. Mike Blankenau reached the top under 21 list. I was third under 16 and 11th under 21 when I was 16. Alexei was in the top list as well. I've talked about Paul, national junior high champion, U.S. Junior Invitational. We can't say anything more about Keaton if we want to move on with the program. So absolutely fantastic. Now, what we want to do for our 5 young prodigies is give you each this book by our original prodigy, John Watson. This book is Chess Strategy in Action. And this is a book of chess philosophy about the evolution of chess. And I think this is as fine a chess book as has been written. It won the Book of the Year award from a couple different organizations. It's very similar to Kasparov's 1970s revolution in chess. Very similar themes. And we want to pass this along. So each of the 5 of you, please come and pick this up. And then please, at the end, and then I'd urge you to get autographs, maybe from the Grandmasters and from some of these people on this list. Probably at least for the Grandmasters at the end of the tournament, they're professionals. The rest of us will sign it at any time. Wonderful passage from John down to our next generation. I ordered 6 books, so I have 1 left, and need to think about who would really appreciate a book about chess philosophy. And JJ, I'm going to give it to you because JJ is a Stanford philosopher and has come back to devote his time fully to chess. I think you'll appreciate this book. We want to thank you for coming back to Nebraska and for what you're doing, and congratulate you for your achievements last year.
I do own this book. I highly recommend it. But since I own it, I do think somebody who has not read it should get it. I don't know.
Okay. My backup was Warren with a philosophy degree. Do you have this book, Warren?
I do not.
Oh, there you go.
When I do my lecture on my game with Benko, I'm going to mention John Watson anyway, just doubly so now, and some of his influence on the things that we young players were looking at here in the Midwest at the time. So,
Lauren's a double PhD in philosophy and in English.
thank you.
Yes. Okay, so how about this picture for the generations?
Yeah, that's a good picture.
Can we just sit on that one for a minute?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Wonderful. Okay, let's move on. And I realize we might be slightly behind on time, but so be it.
Don't you have to do? Are we going to do the course noise for all the old people that got on the
where are we on time, Warren?
I wasn't going to do that. That was a joke.
Yeah, no, we're not that badly behind. We'll go in 15 minutes. Lauren, why don't you tell us some stories about the U.S. Open that we're celebrating? And we have a bunch of fun pictures too. I can handle those, or you can handle it the clicker yourself, whatever you'd like.
How about you click, because I'll look.
Well, we have this first, which was, do you recognize the hotel?
And the right before this time, this is the Bart Lewis thing, so I'll bring it in now. The gambit suddenly takes on a new look. If you've been watching the old ones that Bruce puts up, it looks like they were, original ones were made on either a Vimeo or a copy machine, because they were. And when Bart came in, and in the lead up from things from 74, 75. The Pan Am team is the Chessington Spoon, which I'll talk about later. One of the things that he did, though, is since he was running a company that was an advertising company, they put out magazines and things like that, he fixed the gambit. This look is the new Bard look. Actual professionals designing our covers and the inside. We were still the same sloppy writers in there, but we looked good. And that actually led that year to us getting a nomination for Most Improved State Magazine. So just the first thought, there's a Bart Lewis thing. And I'll talk more Bart Lewis things later. So we had to raise a bunch of money, and people like Bart and Bud and of course the founder of the Lincoln Chess Foundation, B. Frank Watson, were super influential on that. On one of the Facebook pages, they were asking if we had to do bake sales and things like that.
Car washes.
Car washes, bake sales. I think I was the only one that was required to work. A bunch of places gave donations if I came and did a simul at their place during the tournament. So I spent several days during the U.S. Open, which I was playing in also, giving simuls at Nebraska Bookstore and several other sites around this area. So I was doing that bake sale work there. When I wasn't doing that, I'm hanging around with these guys. You got the picture up here.
Yeah, this was just to show that our prize fund of $11,000 is bigger than $10,000.
Yeah.
And we have 4 grandmasters instead of merely Lombardi, Benko, and Biscay are 3 grandmasters.
Ignore all the inflation.
John Watson mentioned inflation, but I told him he was just being particular.
Details. Still the largest.
But it was a breakout tournament for Yasser. Sarah won.
Yeah, we got to, those of us who were around during the day when we weren't giving simuls, we're hanging around the Skittles room playing Blitz with Sarawan and Benjamin.
Joel Benjamin, yeah.
They had nothing else to do during the day either. So that's where I met both of those guys for the first time. I still remember Sarawan after he defeated Bisgeier, which
got
is
a standing
ovation. He walks up to me and knew me from the Blitz room and says, "I beat the biscuit." A very Sarawan kind of thing to say.
And here is the young Yasser Sarawan in a photograph.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure taken by my mother, virtually certain. Right there, and if you can tell, he's in a felt suit that's powder blue and extravagant. And I asked him about this a couple years ago. I asked him if he remembered it. And he said, "Oh yeah, they lost my luggage coming to Lincoln, so I had to go to the Goodwill." And he bought that, and he wore the same thing all 12 rounds.
We just thought he had a whole bunch of them, or didn't really care. There were people around the U.S. Open that smelled for the whole tournament. Sarawan didn't seem to, so.
We lost something there. Maybe Kyle can fix it while we're talking.
That's how
Then,
it was probably.
Yeah, so, Sarawan and Bisgeier, that picture you have up there, as you'll see when we get back, there's a bunch of other local players in the pictures of the Skittles room there.
Right. And then if we had pictures, we'd have a picture of Benko and Lombardi winning. And one thing that we're very proud of is that Lauren drew as black against Benko. And remember, Benko is only a decade removed from being twice in the candidates. And we call it the Nebraska School of Chess. We're a bunch of self-taught autodidacts out here on the prairie in a pre-information age.
Yep.
And just like Elliot's rigor that I was talking about in opening analysis, it permeated everything here. We played serious chess, and Lauren held up as black. That game's held up to computer analysis, and he's going to demonstrate it to us on Sunday morning before the round.
Not the world's most exciting game, but solid.
Lauren, didn't you play Benko Gambit against him?
No, I wanted to play the Benko Gambit, but he avoided it. He played knight f3, and I gave him one more chance to get back in, and he didn't let me do it. So no Benko. said I played the modern, the rat, as was very popular because Watson was writing books about it, and Mike and other people around here, we were playing it as backup openings. So that's what I drew Bingo.
I remember seeing, I saw them make the parodies. I called you at home and told you were playing Bingo
Yeah.
as
yeah.
Black, and you said, I know what I'm doing, he plays E4.
I was ready, but no, he was afraid.
It was a very proud moment. We'll turn it over to Bruce in just a second when he gets back to get on with the rest of the.
Can we go back to the picture of the Skittles real quick?
Which one?
We had the pictures with the different guys in the Skittles room. Just
The Skittles room, sure.
one more on. There we go.
Yeah, I think that might be Gary Colvin with his back. They were playing Mark Kitchen, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think Kitchen's there. He's there. That might be Perry.
I'm not sure, and that's Eugene Meyer playing Benko on the left.
Right. But yeah, so there's a number of Nebraska luminaries hanging around the Skittles room with the future GMs. And we absorbing all the future knowledge that they didn't have yet.
Absolutely, and Vic Pupils taught Sarah Long, we can claim that. Lenny's as well. I should mention Joel Benjamin's dad went to the University of Nebraska.
Oh, really?
Another tie in there, yeah, he did.
So I beat Joel Benjamin.
We tell one last U.S. Open story, then we'll move on to the other part of the program. This, of course, is a picture of Lombardi, John Collins, and the young Bobby Fischer. And at this time, there was a very famous book that was out called My Seven Chess Prodigies, written by Jack Collins, where he talked about having been the coach of the Byrne brothers, Fischer, Louis Salvatierra, the Weinstein brothers, etc.
They weren't brothers.
They weren't brothers?
No.
Oh, okay, well, thank you.
Unless I'm thinking
Labored
about
under that. So, my buddy Mark Kitchen and I came down here to the building because we heard that Lombardi and Collins were staying here at the hotel, and in those days they tell you what room people were in. So we went up there, we knocked on the door, and Grandmaster Lombardi answered and invited us in, and there was Collins, I mean, just like that, and they autographed the book for me here that I've kept to this day. So then the next year, I'm at the U.S. Open, and on board one, on TV and everything, I'm playing Lombardi. And Elliot, it's one of those mainline Bishop G5 Nidorfs. He played Bishop D3. I played H6. He played that H4 peace stack offer.
Yeah, I remember you played that.
Well, and you and I think Watson, I forget exactly, it was all three of us, or two of the three of us have been analyzing that peace stack. So I was ready for it. I whipped out an IP6 just instantly and looked up at the GM like, you can't surprise me. But anyway, he ended up winning the game. I came back to the Lincoln Chess Club, which met in the library, and as usual, I would always go check the newspapers before the evening chess club. And Los Angeles Times, Isaac Cashton has published the game. Okay, so then 30 years later, fast forward to the park in New York. Why is the name slipping my mind?
Washington Square Park.
Yeah, Washington Square Park.
I think there's one called Central too, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. And so I run into Grandmaster Lombardi, and we go over the game and everything. And he said, this was all Fischer Statsky prep in '72, because he was, Lombardi was Fischer's second. And so I call that loss to Lombardi actually my loss to Bobby Fischer. Clearly it
Obviously.
And so that gives me the platform because I wanted to give away a couple Fischer-related things. That was the only reason for that story. So I was in Reykjavik 2 weeks ago, and got to go to the Bobby Fischer Museum and a lot of his hangouts, etc. And one of the things here that they have is the famous quote from Fischer that I don't believe in psychology. I believe in good moves. We know that quote, right?
Yeah.
So I want to give this to Rich for not only the four-time state championship, but sure appreciate family members coming and being a part of all of that with us. And Rich, appreciate your being a friend when we're down in Texas. And then the other, just two other real quick things here. This cup is Bobby Fischer every day went down to a used bookstore, and he would read there. And I talked with the owner, and we reminisced a lot. He told me stories. And he had this cup that after each game in the World Championship match in '72, the next day they would have a cup that had a diagram of the previous day's position. And this is from game 2. And so I thought this, and by the way, Bobby Fischer himself has seen this glass. So I thought I really need to give this position from game 2 to an opening theoretician. So Elliot, please.
Yeah, famous position, we've all seen it before. That's the thing that Fisher forfeited.
And then, since
But that was a novelty, a theoretical
so
novelty.
since it's history, I'd like to give 2 of the kind of postcards. This actually has an original stamp from 1972, and so to people who have been chess historians, so I'd like to give this to you, Bruce. Bob, this is a 50th anniversary of the '72 match, but you know our 50th anniversary too, and we appreciate the historical work that you've done. And with that, I think we'll turn it over to Bruce, who has a few awards and start inducting our Hall of Fame members.
Woo-hoo.
Thanks, guys. Are we advancing the slides ourselves?
Yes, I made sure it was really simple, so it's just
So as Alexis, as we were coming earlier, that was the book that I was using to get an idea of how to teach you.
Oh, that was.
Before we actually start,
The world champion.
Yeah, all the 7 presidents. Yeah.
There's a rule, but then that he was explaining how he had to play with all the world champions.
I got to be the 8th chess president.
You were.
before we actually start recognizing the 9 new members of the Hall of Fame, which were selected in 2024 and are being inducted tonight in 2025. Alexi reminded me last year that I had the date wrong because we're sort of like one of those things that we recognize the following year. I'd like to do a shout out, first of all these different people that have played an important part in chess, not only this year, but also in the past. First of all, I'd like anybody who's on the Lincoln Chess Foundation board to stand and receive
Now
a plug.
or past?
Now, let's do, we can have people from the past too, sure, why not?
Okay.
Yeah, let's recognize anybody who's ever been on the foundation.
Mike, get ready.
All right, if you were a past or a present member of the Hall of Fame Selection
I'll
Committee,
ask you again.
please stand. I'm on there, and Rod is on there. We have John. John, are you still with us?
Yes.
Well, John was on the committee for 2 years, and he's responsible for nominating, especially nominating 2 of the people that are going in this year. So
Right.
he's going to read their induction, sort of introductions or the bios later when we get to that. So John is to be recognized for that too. All NSCA board members and Omaha Chess Community Board members, would you please stand?
Past or future?
How about if you work for Chess Life? US Chess, I mean. Yeah.
US Chess.
And John Harkin regretfully said he couldn't make it tonight, but he does plan to stop by and see what's going on over the weekend, so that's nice. And then finally, well, I already did. You already have to have you stand again, Jay. All right. Now if I can multitask here. All right.
We're all old.
First of all,
Those people.
before we announce the inductees, we offered the Lincoln Chess Foundation and the Hall of Fame got together and created several different awards that we want to give out this year to people for the things that they've done. One of them is for the Director of the Year. And that is actually going to be Tony Dutillo, who's not only directed last year, but has also come back to direct again this year. So thank you. Yes.
When's your wedding, Tony?
August 2nd.
Yeah, he's getting married.
He's getting married. This is Tony's plaque that he gets for this award. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to just say here for a moment that Tony was my student many, many years ago when he was still in junior high, when it was back when it was called junior high. And he's been playing chess all these years, and he's actually probably better than me now. We've played a few times, and he's beaten me more times than I've beaten him. So he's now eclipsed the person who was originally his chess teacher. So congratulations. Second thing is, we are decided to give away a scholarship this year, and we decided to honor a senior who's a chess player who also would volunteer to take part in some journalism, meaning they would contribute to the Gambit. So we're giving a $1,000 scholarship this year to Gabe Harkin, who is also assisting in the direction. We will give you the check. Would you rather have the check or the plaque? It was a close decision. All right, and then I'm going to have. I'm going to have Keaton come up here and give a special award away, and I'll let him explain what it's for. And I'll get out for him so he knows where it is. You can also recognize him for his.
Okay, sure. All right, this award is for John Watson. So this is for his induction into the Hall of Fame, and it's a lifetime achievement award to celebrate the amazing career that John Watson has had in chess and his affiliation with Nebraska. You guys you all know and you've heard all night about everything that John has accomplished throughout his chess career. So I just wanted to add a few personal words. I connected with John for the first time maybe around college or a little after. When I moved to San Diego, John was living in San Diego, so he and I started working together there quite a bit. We'd play some friendly games with each other, we'd study and do analysis together, and we've taught at camps together before. And John is just the kindest, most humble person. He's probably the last person who would ever want an award or want to be made a big deal of. You know, that's just not who he is. You know, he's just a good person, and he does chess for love of the game and for passion. And he has had such an impact on chess, not only as a player, but as a great coach who has coached really promising young players. Maybe most notably Kurt Gazarian, who made Grandmaster recently, was John's longtime student. And John's had, he's done podcasts and shows and written a countless number of books. And done commentary and written articles. So John has had his fingerprint all over the chess world for decades, and of course we're very proud to have him as a native Nebraskan. So congratulations, John.
And this is the plaque. This is the Lifetime Achievement plaque that we're giving to John. I'm going to have to mail it to him, but we'll have to get an address from him, from Rod. Also, John never got a plaque for getting into the Hall of Fame. And so we're going to give him his Hall of Fame plaque at the same time. All right. Thank you, Keaton. Okay. Now we come to the purpose of this entire thing, which is to induct the 9 new people. So since I'm up here already, I'm going to be the first one to start. I'm going to read the bios of 2 of the nominees, or the 2 of the inductees. I should call them nominees anymore because they're members now. Incidentally, all of our Hall of Fame members, back where my brother is, right there, he walked past it, there's like an easel or tripod that's got the plaque on it, and all the names of our 28 Hall of Famers are on there, including the 9 new ones that are coming in tonight. I want to thank Gary Coleman for writing these for us, because he went to the trouble to write them up so we wouldn't have to scramble to read them off a screen, so we can read them off of paper instead, or a card. Okay, first nominee is Kevin Fleming. The first inductee is Kevin Fleming. Kevin is one of the most decorated chess players, journalists, directors, organizers, teachers, and leaders to ever grace our state. Appearing in the state closed in 1984, Kevin won his first of nearly unprecedented 6 state championships, a feat only exceeded by Howard Ullman and Keaton Kira. Kevin won the closed again in 1989 as a co-champion with Gary Coleman, and then back-to-back in 91 and 92, and again back-to-back in 96 and 97. Kevin also won 2 Lincoln City championships in 87 and 88, and finished as high as 2nd in the Omaha City Championship. Kevin won many other chess tournaments and achieved a National Masters title during his time here in our state. Kevin was far more than just a chess player. He was a teacher, a mentor, one of Keaton Kira's first teachers. He was also a director, an organizer, a gambit editor, an officer in both the NSCA and the Lincoln Chess Foundation. Kevin was one of the strongest over-the-board chess players I ever faced. I think I only beat him once in many tries and achieved 1 draw. For me, being paired against Kevin in the last round of an event usually meant I wasn't going to win anything. Kevin filled in for me to help lead the NSCA in the late 1990s when I resigned as president in order to concentrate on important career and family matters. More importantly, Kevin was a first-class individual. He always was respectful and friendly, willing to go over games, win or lose with his opponents. And Kevin, unfortunately, left Nebraska and moved to Texas in 2002. But his Nebraska chess legacy makes him an absolutely essential addition to the Nebraska Chess Hall of Fame. So Kevin Fleming, and he was going to be here tonight, but he said he was driving up here, but hopefully he comes tomorrow. So we'll give him his plaque if he's here. The second inductee I'd like to nominate, or read the bio for, I keep on saying nominate, is Bob Woodward. All right. Bob is one of the elder statesmen of Nebraska chess. He spent his entire career in Nebraska, which is a claim that only a few of us can make. For years, Bob has played in major national events, both here in Nebraska and also in other states. He's met and played simultaneously against many famous grandmasters. He also played in both the 69 and 75 U.S. Opens here in Lincoln. He has traveled to both the National Open and the Western States Open numerous times over the last 26 years, where he met and interacted with many famous chess personalities. You may have seen a slide earlier of him playing a final against Boris Spassky, who only just died, I think, like a couple weeks ago. But he actually drew Spassky in that final, so that was pretty impressive. Bob also earned a rating of over 1,800 in correspondence chess. His peak over the board rating was in the 1900s. Bob has been a huge asset to Nebraska chess. I'm proud to see him inducted, as he is also just an all-around nice guy, always friendly and ready to strike up a conversation with you. Bob's contributions to Nebraska chess include dozens of articles about his travels and simul experiences published in the Gambit, and serving for over 25 years as our Nebraska State Chess Association historical archivist. 25 years. He was archivist when I left. And I came back and he was still there. So that's amazing. Bob also produced dozens of chess puzzles over the years that appeared in various issues of the Gambit. And after taking over from Bob Holling, and before that Jim Jerusik as historical archivist, Bob collected and preserved hundreds of bound copies of many of these newsletters, and he took them to the State Historical Society in Lincoln, which have proven to be essential for people like me who hang out at the Nebraska State Historical Society doing historical research. And he's documented our chess history for 25 years. So that's incredible. I wish I could claim that I'd been 25 years straight of doing it. Although Bob is now in his late 80s, he continues to serve Nebraska chess as our historical archivist, and he can't leave. I'm sorry. You're stuck with us, Bob. He's a great source of information about chess events of the past and personalities. He's also one of the original members of the Camelot Chess Club, the oldest chess club in the state of Nebraska. So, and he even shows up there to exchange stuff with me. So, once in a while, he was just there a couple weeks ago. All right, so Bob Woodward. And you want to talk Bob? Okay, yeah, you want to come up and say something?
Okay.
Well, Mr. Thank you for letting me put all that stuff in your house. Thank you for letting me put all that stuff in your house.
First of all, here's your plaque.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you very much.
And the microphone's right here.
Thank you, Bruce. I'd like to thank anyone that nominated me to be in the Hall of Fame. As an archivist, I've done it for a long time. I really enjoy doing archive work. I almost enjoy it more than playing the game. So, well, anyway, I've got a couple, talking about the 75 U.S. Open, I've got a couple stories about it. First of all, I used to work at the time, in 75, I was working at Enron. Everybody's heard of Enron. And I can't believe, of course, back then I was 35 years old in 75, and we drove down, I had a friend of mine at work, and we decided to play in the U.S. Open in 75. I can't believe we drove every day, or every night down here for 5 days, 12 rounds. There were like 6 rounds the first week, 6 rounds the second week. So we'd get off work and we'd get on the interstate, come down to Lincoln. I can't do that for 2 weeks. Today I could barely drive down here once. And we actually did that. And one time coming down here, I remember we missed a turn off the interstate. And oh boy, was that, talk about panic. But luckily, this friend of mine at work was driving. He said, in fact, I was driving, I guess. He said, and he was from Lincoln, luckily. He says, I know a back way to get to downtown. If it had been me, I never would have gotten to the first, I would have lost all kinds of time on my clock. But anyway, he saved us getting off the off the wrong ramp. We went some back streets to get back off the interstate. And the second funny story that happened was in '75. We get to the tournament hall one of the night, or the first round, before the first round, and they have all the descriptions about how the rules are as far as getting around and what you're supposed to do, and like that. And we're sitting in front of Paul Benko, and his friend of mine, he got a laugh out of it because Benko was reading one of the rule books. You know, it shows a beginner book where it shows how the pieces move and stuff. And he thought that was the funniest thing to see Benko sitting there. And he spent quite a bit of time reading this manual. He was probably bored with the director or whatever. But anyway, we thought that was pretty funny. And and I played in '69, but that's been so long ago, I can't remember too much about the '69 tournament. But the '75 I do because of the wrong turn off the interstate and the and the Benko going over looking at that rule book, that beginner's book. So those are the two stories I had that I remember from '75. I'm of course been doing archive work for a long time, and once in a while in archive work you have something that makes it all worthwhile. About 3-4 years ago, we found Howard Oman's game scores. They were rumored that they didn't exist anymore. And I happened to be downtown, and Craig Campbell was there. I had to say something to him. I remembered him from playing him years ago in tournaments. And I said, you know anything about the Oman game scores? And he said, yes, it's home on my bookshelf. And so I got a hold of that, and something I'm going to turn into the Historical Society about finding the Oman game scores. There's about 300 of them. So we documented all those, and played through them and everything. So archive work can be real rewarding sometimes, and you never know what's going to happen. And of course, now I'm working with Bruce on the gambits, digging out the old gambits to try to find them all. We don't have quite all of them, but we got quite a. What are we missing, 4 or 5 maybe?
Yeah, we're missing some from the really early ones, like the 64.
64 number.
But I've got 15 years of, the first 15 years of the gambit done. So it's all been digitized. I will not claim that it's all been algebraically translated, by the way. That was nice of Rod to say, but I did some games, but not the entire thing.
Digitized as text?
Yeah, yeah, I just, I had to scan them and then cut and paste them into Word. It's a pretty monumental task. I'm working on 62 years, but some of it's already done. And the modern ones are already in there, but we're missing some issues. So, I mean, if anybody has old issues of the gambit, you know, feel free to contact me or Bob, and you know, we can always see if it's one we're missing.
And they've had to do a whole lot of work. Some of the ones they have are the old mimeos and things that are rubbed off, and they're trying to figure out game scores or people's names, even in some cases, to try to figure. They've done some great detective work in trying to restore the old cross tables or games from those.
I saw your name is Orange Schmid.
The 1972 State High School Scholastic was virtually unreadable. And I went through it with magnifying glasses and, you know, just trying to guess. And Lauren helped some because he said, I think that's such and such from this school. And then Evan Blanchard from North Platte chimed in and said, you know, that's guy from North Platte, I know that name. And so I eventually almost completely reconstructed the 1972 State High School Scholastic, both the Challenger Division and the Open Division, which was a pretty amazing accomplishment. Because when I first looked at that thing, I thought, there's no way I'm ever going to figure out what this is. So.
I've got one other thing, talking about the '75 US Open. Warren, you mentioned Bill Alexander and that draw with Lombardi. I was the one, I worked with Bill Alexander. We worked at Enron.
Okay.
And Bill was trying to decide, he knew he was going to play black that night against Lombardi. And we talked about what opening we're gonna use. And I told him, I said, what's surprising, we'll play the center counter, the Scandinavian defense. And sure enough, I didn't know if he was gonna do it. And he did, and he got a draw with Lombardi, so I felt like, well, I might have helped him out a little bit, but he did all the hard work, so anyway, that's just another story from '75.
I think Bill Alexander is still playing. He's on a cross table of a tournament, senior tournament that Elliott played in out in California last year.
Oh, is he still playing? I didn't know, I lost touch with him.
Sure, Bill
I'm
Alexander.
pretty sure it's the same person, the right age and the right rating and everything, but he didn't do very well. He finally dropped his rating out of the 1900s.
He must be in his 70s now,
1800s.
probably.
Yeah, he would be, and so it looks like one of those guys like some of us that don't play for a long time and then they come back in and. But I'm pretty sure it's the same guy based on a number of things about, they're listed about where he lived and everything. So I think he ended up in California.
Yeah, I knew that, he was gonna
Yeah,
stay
and
here.
still alive.
Oh, that's good, yeah. Good to
You
hear.
know,
We can count him as a Nebraska player though.
Incidentally, we're gonna have a memorabilia room set up across the hall in the director's room. This year we got a director's room and a Skittles room in that smaller ballroom that we used last year for this event. This year it's gonna be our tournament, director's room and the memorabilia room is gonna have an actual 75 Gambit that may have that game in it. And that you'll be able to, if you want to go in there and look at it, I've printed it out. It's going to be in descriptive notation, sorry, but it's still, it's kind of cool. It's got a whole bunch of the games because somebody made a diary. I don't know if it was you, Lauren, or if it was.
The bulletin was put out by Ted Herman, of course, was here last year, and the late great Mike Chess. That's why they didn't play in the U.S. Open. They were doing the bulletin.
Oh, is that
And so
what-
they collected all these games every round, put together a bulletin, and then people all complaining because they were charging them for it. Well, we entered the tournament, we should be able to do that. Well, no, they hadn't paid Ted or Mike. So they were doing it, so that the games that are in the Gambit are a selection from the ones from their daily bulletins.
Yeah, and there's quite an extensive collection, and in fact, I think the Lombardi Alexander game is in there.
Yeah, it's on chessgames.com too if you want to look it up.
Yeah.
In algebraic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they might have done more work than I have. Thank you, Bob.
Can you hold the flag up so I can get a picture of you with it?
Oh, yes,
There we go, there we go. This won't hurt, I promise.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to turn the microphone over to our guest on Zoom, which is John Drexel. And Kyle, can you get John up on the screen for this?
Yeah, right.
All right. John, we're going to actually show you, I think. So you're not just going to be a voice in the wilderness.
Oh, no, I'm John.
I just got a picture of my,
Oh,
I have a face to radio.
Oh, okay. This is going to be the face of the launch 1,000 ships, is that correct?
Was there for a second?
All right, my turn?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can everybody hear him?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I want to congratulate Richard Perry for being inducted in the Hall of Fame. And I want partial credit for this because 50 years ago, he was a study partner with Greg Wilkins and Alan Warner. And Perry usually dominated those sessions. And I was victim to him in many speed games. So Richard grew up in Omaha during the Fisher boom of the 70s. During his junior and senior years of high school, his game really flourished in 1975. He won the Nebraska Scholastic High School Championship as a student at Burkeye. I don't know why Richard went to Burkeye and he hung out with the South High guy, so maybe no comment on that. After high school, he continued to improve and won 4 consecutive state championships. Feed only exceeded by Howard Ullman and Keaton Kira, and somebody mentioned someone else earlier that wasn't on this list. So,
But they weren't consecutive.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Had he not moved to Texas for work, he would probably have more state titles. He earned the national master rating and is one of Nebraska's strongest players. Bravo, Richard. Come up and give us a few words.
All right. He said he has a lot of stories he could tell, but he promised you.
Yeah, that's true.
These walls can talk, huh?
Yeah.
I want to hear this.
I can tell some stories.
All right, first of all, Richard, congratulations. You're black.
Okay. I hate doing this kind of stuff, all right? I don't talk in front of people, but I'm gonna do my best. And I had to write notes down on my 3x5s here because of things that have been said tonight that, you know, makes for more interesting stories. But I wanted to start off by saying, you know, thank you to everybody, John Drexel especially, that had a hand in my induction into the Nebraska Hall of Fame, Chess Hall of Fame. It's a great honor and much appreciated. It's a lifetime achievement award that I never would have thought I would have got. I don't think it existed. I very much appreciate it. So a couple of the stories that came out here, I wanted to say a few things. Now, I've never met John Watson, but I have to thank John Watson because he wrote a series of books on the French defense. And I have all of those books. And back in the day when I was playing in Nebraska, if you played E4, I played E6. Period. That was it. Okay, I played the French defense pretty much exclusively. I'll get into a game I played against somebody else getting inducted tonight relative to that. So anyway, I always played it, so I want to thank John Watson for writing those books. They were very good. Elliot Winslow. I never would have thought of mentioning Elliot Winslow until tonight. When we were sitting up in the bar, Elliot came in, and I was sitting around there with some of my family members, and one of them looked up and said, well, isn't that Bruce Draney? And I looked over and I thought, yeah, that kind of looks like Bruce Draney. So I said, hey, Bruce, and he walks over and he said, well, I don't know who you're talking about, but I'm not Bruce. I said, he said, no, I'm Elliot Winslow. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. You don't look like the Elliot Winslow. Okay? So we got to talking a little bit, and I mentioned to him, I had to make a detour in 1974 driving to Ocean City, Maryland for a tournament out in Ocean City, Maryland. It was a world-class championship. And he did vaguely remember that, and he looked it up. I mean, he must have his entire life history of chess on that phone. But he looked it up and said, yeah, that was 1974. So he did remember it, and I took the detour because Mike Blankenau came. I don't know if you remember that. Do you? Okay. There's an even better part to that story that Elliot had nothing to do with. But, so we chatted a little bit, and I too remember, you know, this microscopic writing in all of your books, and I don't know where you found a fine tip pen fine enough to write that small. 000 over big red. It was mind-boggling.
Got the tools.
But this man can write the smallest anything you can imagine. Could. And still be readable. Now I can't even read them.
Oh,
Okay, now you can't read them. Well, like I said, at that same
I know how you
time,
feel.
I was with Mike Blankenau. We took that trip out there, and like I said, we detoured to St. Louis to pick up Elliot. And it was a week-long tournament. The start of the week, weather was fine. You got towards the end of the week, a bad storm was blowing in, because this was in November timeframe. Snowstorm. So we left the tournament. I think it was over anyway, but as we were driving back home, we got stuck on the Pennsylvania Turnpike in a little town appropriately named Frostburg, Pennsylvania. It was properly named. They had shut down the turnpike because of the snowstorm. So we started off by sleeping, or trying to sleep in the car. And that wasn't working out because it was too cold outside, right? So
we ended up in this little town rec center or gymnasium or whatever it was, and everybody was in there because there were no hotel rooms to be had. And so we were trying to catch some sleep in this gym or whatever it was. And we actually had some woman come up to us. We had found a chair, or at least I had, and she had the audacity to ask me if I could get up while I was, she woke me up to ask me if she could have the chair. I said, but anyway, we did manage to make it back home from that one, but that's one of those memorable trips that you won't forget. It says Mike is here and Elliot's here. I thought, well, I got to mention that because I wouldn't have thought of it otherwise. Yeah.
It's an interesting tournament.
Right.
In a lot of ways.
As far as a few other things I wrote notes on, so mentioned John, mentioned Elliot. Okay. When we go back to the scholastic tournaments that were held in the mid-70s, the first one I played in was 74. That was the first state scholastic tournament. Well, Central was the team to beat in Nebraska. They had all the really good players. Well, almost all. Burke had at least one good player. And South had some good players too, but Central was the hard team to beat. And they never had to play each other, obviously, team event. So they got all the easy pairings, theoretically. So it was fourth round. I got paired against Mike. And he was rated like 2066 at the time, and I was 1641. And so statistically speaking, I've got no chance here. And no one thought I had a chance, and that includes me. But you can't think that. So I had white, and he played E4, and I played the French. And so he played the advanced variation of the French, and he played the Milner-Berry gambit, where he's sacking his pawn. And as soon as he did that, I thought, you gotta be kidding me. The reason I thought that is because about 2 to 3 weeks before that, I played in the tournament in Omaha. I think it was probably one of the tornadoes that Jack Spence put on. And I absolutely got smoked in that opening as black by Mike Copeland, because I'd never played against him, never saw it. So for 2 to 3 weeks solid, that was the only opening I studied. And Mike played it. Thank you, Mike. I have to thank you for playing that. What ends up happening is I played a good solid game. Mike never got his pawn back. Eventually, he got into desperation towards the end, sacked another pawn. That was the end of it. I can say if you go out to the Facebook page for Nebraska chess history, this game is out there. Okay? So I have to thank Mike for that, because the lesson I learned from that is you always have to believe. And I know it probably messed your tournament up, but, say la vie. But the interesting thing about 74 was that the way they did the nationals is that, well, in Omaha, you had to draw from the same school. All right, so if you went to South, you represented South, et cetera. Well, so the Central team went, and it was Mike, I think it was Seitzer, John Milton, Waterman.
Waterman's still there.
Okay, so that was their four-man team. Now, Evanston, Illinois, or some place like that, they ended up, I think Central finished second. They actually won it. However, had we done the same thing in Omaha that they did in Illinois, Central would have won it, if they would have swapped out Waterman for me. So I had 6 points. I don't know what he scored, 4, something like that. So they would have actually won that title in 74 had we done it like they did, in Evanston, Illinois. So I thought that was interesting. And somebody told me about that years ago, and I thought, well, that's fascinating. I never really thought about that. Somebody brought it up. So I thought that was, pretty cool at the time.
Suspicious Illinois.
What's that?
Suspicious Illinois.
Yeah.
It's like those Little League All-Star teams.
Right.
Everybody in the county.
Something else here, and maybe Elliot went, so this is you again. I remember you played in the North American Open in 1974. Stillwater, Oklahoma.
70s.
Yeah, 74. I went down there, Rich Chess, Mike Chess, and Chuck Krasinski. You know, he went to Berg, you know, you won't hear much about him normally. But we three went and played in that tournament, and that too was a 12-round tournament. And that too was one of those deals, you know, I learned that being at the top of the bottom half of the rating list for round one wasn't necessarily the place you wanted to be. Okay, so I was number whatever it was, and I got paired up to first board round one against William Martz. And he was an IM, 24 something. And they're playing on a stage, if you can recall that. So they're playing on a stage. I got a draw against Martz in round one.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. And the thing I remember though about Elliott, this was 74 August, and this was the same time frame that Richard Nixon resigned. And you had the headlines of the newspaper up there where you said in big letters, Nixon resigns. And you took that resigns and you had it up there so that everyone could see that. So I don't know if that was a head game you were trying to play with people or not. Do you remember that?
No, I cut out the Nixon and the first R and held it in front of my opponent. That's right, yes.
Okay. Well, I knew there was something to that, but I do remember that. Okay. So I do remember some things, but they have to go back 50 plus years. So that was 51 years, right? And then the other thing that was presented tonight that I wasn't going to say anything about because I never thought about it, is I thought it was kind of interesting the way Rod got up here and talked about their Reshevskis. Okay, so the little child prodigy types. And they had the list of players up there, and I'm looking at that list and going, yeah, okay, I can see that. I would never put myself on that list. However, that being said, I have played Alexei Rudolph, I have played Rich Chess, I have played Rod Malgert, I have played Mike McNabb, and I have beat each of them at least at some point in time. It may not have been when I was in high school, or it may have, but I at least beat all of them at some point in time. So I got to beat, what, 4 Reshevskis? So anyway, yeah. So continuing on what I wrote before, I was saying it takes many people to achieve a level of success such as what you have to have in order to get inducted into the Hall of Fame. You need TDs, organizers, players, financial backers, and others to organize tournaments. So this is not something done in a vacuum. Any success any of us have is dependent upon other people. Okay. Now I would like to move on to thanking specific people. My parents. Well, they're both gone. But they never really encouraged or discouraged my playing chess. They were totally neutral on it. It was 100% me driving me. Today, I don't think that's true. I think a lot of kids are driven by their parents. At least the students I have, parents are pushing. Okay, sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But you know, no one drove any of us, I don't think, as far as their parents were concerned. There might be some, but I think most did not. It was do it on your own or don't do it. So they didn't encourage or discourage me, but they did something that I know, I'm not a parent, okay? But I can imagine that it has to be hard for parents to give their kids the freedom to, when they're teenagers, to drive out of town on their own to go to a weekend tournament and trust that they're not going to get in trouble. I can't even imagine what that would be like. Okay, but my parents did that. They gave me the car. They ended up buying me the car, which that was great. Went to a lot of tournaments in it. It was a 72 Pinto bike, in case you okay. So anyway, they gave me the freedom to actually attend tournaments, and so that was their contribution. A big one for them. Okay. Secondly, now I'd like to thank, and he's no longer with us, Charlie Graham. Now I had to talk last year on Charlie Graham. That was tough. But Charlie Graham is the guy who made it possible for me to afford to go to tournaments. You know, he gave me a job working at his Buick dealership, but honestly, I spent more time playing in chess in his office. And by playing chess in his office, I made way more money to play for money than I ever would have made in the parts department. So that was his contribution. I'm in touch with his son, Scott Graham, on Facebook. And he said, well, he knew what he was doing. He was doing that on purpose. And you know, as far as playing for money. And I figured that at the time. But without that, it would have been a lot harder for me. I couldn't have had a part-time job that actually mattered. I did have the part-time job that, come on, that was nothing. So he made it possible, and so Charlie was a big chess fan. He loved playing chess, and he supported a lot of the tournaments in the Omaha area, financially and otherwise, that some people may or may not even know about. So, you know, he was a good player, but I don't know if he ever beat me. But after the '74 Scholastic tournament, we met him because John Drexel, Craig Wilkins, myself, maybe Al Warner was there, guys from South, and something John said, and I'd like to know if he has any remembrance of this. He said, well, I don't know why Rich went to Berkeley, because he hung out with all the South guys. Well, that was true. I don't even remember how we started hanging out, John. If you do, let me know, but I don't recall. But yeah,
I think it was, yeah, we rode together on that bus to New York and back, and
yeah.
I think none of those Burke guys wanted to hang out with you, so you hung. Yeah.
Ooh. They might be right. I don't know. We won't tell any of the stories from that bus trip.
He was a bad boy.
We'll leave that go.
No, we shouldn't tell those stories.
No, we shouldn't. Yeah, I think we had to drive to Urbandale, Iowa to pick up that bus. Does that sound right? Yeah, okay. So maybe that was it. I just didn't recall, but you're probably right. So anyway, yeah, I hung out with the South guys, and you know, John, I, Craig Wilkins, we played all the time. So that was great. So, but when we wanted to go to that '74 Scholastic, National Scholastic in New York City, we had to raise some money to do it. That's how we met Charlie Graham. So we went and introduced ourselves, and we said, you know, here's what we want to do. We want to put on a chess marathon to raise money. And he said, okay, you can do it in my showroom. So we did. And we played for, I think, 72 hours straight. And I got sick of Denny and the Jets on the radio. I mean, you get punchy after, I don't know, 50 hours or so, and everyone's going, Denny and the Jets. It was really funny if you think back on it. But we raised money for that. At the end, we were like $200 short, and Charlie threw in the rest. When we got back, I went and asked him if he had a job, and he said sure. And that's when I started working there and playing him chess in his office. And I don't know if I ever told John or Craig that that's where I was getting my money from. I don't recall. Did I? John?
I knew you worked there. I don't remember him paying you for other than the normal wage.
Yeah, I pretty much kept that a secret, I believe. I didn't want anybody else going out there and asking him for a job. So lost track. So yeah, Charlie Graham 6. So I mentioned the chess match. Oh, so what Charlie did in '75 when the state scholastic, or not the state, the national scholastic tournament came around again, is I was playing Charlie in his office one day, and he said, isn't the scholastic tournament coming up here pretty soon? I said, yeah, it is. Why? He said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. He said, if you go ahead and win that tournament, you'll pay my entire way to New York City. And I said, wow, really? He said, yeah, whatever you want to do. You take a plane, you take a bus, you can do whatever you want. He said, keep track of your expenses. He cut me a check at the end. So I said, okay. So that was a pretty good incentive to do well, you know. So I played in that, and guess who I had to play at the state scholastic? Number one, I had to play, this guy named John Drexel. Okay. So we got paired around,
2 or 3.
yeah, I think it was 3. And Craig Wilkins, I had to play him, and I also had to play John Milton from Central. And Milton was the guy I lost to in '74 in round 5 after my game with Mike Blankenau, which I was burned out after playing that game, so I lost to Milton in '74. But in '75, I managed to win the tournament. I had to beat John, and I had to beat these guys. I got a draw against Milton, which was all I needed at the end. And so I thought that was pretty cool. So I did. I told him, hey, yeah, I won, because I went back to work. He said, well, did you win the tournament? I said, yes, I did. He said, really? I said, yeah. I said, well, okay, I'll pay your way to New York. So he did do that. And so, you know, that was excellent. So go to the third person here, and we'll go back to Mike Blankenau. So I'm thanking Mike Blankenau here. And the reason I mention Mike is because I learned from him that anything is possible. That's when I was talking about the beginning of 1974. You know, it was a board 1 versus, I was board 1 at Berkeley, he was board 1 at Central. I was the big underdog. And you do have to believe that you can win these games. And so Mike, that game with Mike taught me a very big lesson that I did learn a lot from. Okay, 4th, John Jones. John was a high school friend of mine. So we played a lot of blitz games and regular games when we were in high school. John actually, you know this, John nominated me for this Hall of Fame. And so I got to say thank you for doing that. Thank you. In high school and after, I was kind of one of these lost people who had no idea what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. All right? And I remember we were playing a game, or we were playing one night, and I asked you what you were doing, and you said, oh, I went to work for Digital Omaha. And I said, really? Doing what? And he said, I became a computer programmer. I said, what's that? What's a computer programmer? I didn't know. And so he explained it to me. And basically, the way John explained it to me, he said, look, it's kind of like chess. If you have the right mindset for chess and you're good at chess, which you are, he said, you would like computer programming. So I said, never heard of it, never thought about it. So I thought about it and I thought, okay. So I went to, there's a school called ECPI. I went there and it was a 6-month, basically 8-hour-a-day class, and graduated from there and started computer programming. All right. So what's that?
What language?
COBOL. Yeah, okay. You know, that was the archaic language back then. It still exists today. Okay, but yeah, it's COBOL on a mainframe. All right. So anyway, that became my career. So if I would never have started playing chess, I never would have met John. I never would have found out about programming. And so from there, let's see. That leads me to my wife. Because I met her at the First Data Resources in the IT department. All right? So you can see how this kind of is a snowball effect. So chess equals knowing John, equals computer programming, equals getting a job in that line of work, going to work magically at a place where I meet my future wife. And so that's been my life trajectory. All goes back to chess. So, I think that's kind of weird, but that's how life tends to work out. So I have to thank my wife for putting up with me for 42 years and all the online chess I play, because I play virtually every day online, and I counted up once, across all different websites that you play chess on. And one time, and this was maybe 10 years ago, I added them up. And you got to understand, a lot of this is bullet chess, 1 minute chess. But I added up all the games I played on all these different websites, and they came to somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000. and add to that over, you know, from that point going forward. So it's gotta be close to $1 million, I would think, at this point, which is ridiculous, but she puts up. Okay, so I do have to say thank you for that. Moving on. So, Kent is the one chess friend that I have that I've actually kept in touch with over the years. We played a lot of Skittles games as well, and that's basically when I moved to Lincoln, which would have been 1978. And Kent was, and still is, an excellent player. He is truly, and he can't deny this, and no one who's played him can deny this, he is truly the draw master. Because that's what Kent likes to do. He'll draw. Now, that works out good sometimes, it works out bad sometimes. It cost me an 83 closed because I drew you. But at the same token, in 75, you drew John Kirk in the last round. And he had drawn Milton. So if Kirk would have beat you, then he would have tied me for first in that tournament. But he was playing the draw master, so that wasn't going to happen. So I have to thank you for that one, but you know, what you take from one side, you lose on the other. That's okay. So thank you, Ken. It's been great for all these games. Okay. And lastly, I want to thank Rod and Alfred, Bruce Straney, and everybody else who has put on this event. You know, this takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. I know Rod knows it takes money, and so without any of that, none of this would be possible. So thank you to those guys especially. This is the 50th anniversary of the U.S. Open. My add to that is that I did play the U.S. Open. I did the same drive from Omaha to Lincoln, 12 nights, right? And I don't know where I was on that chart up there. Probably wasn't there. I scored 7 and 5. All right, scoring 7 and 5 got me first place Nebraska junior. Now, I was going to bring the trophy I got for that. We got like 30 miles away from home driving up here, and I realized, I forgot it at home. But I wasn't going to turn back at that point and get it. But I did get top junior, and I do actually have the trophy to prove that. Maybe I'll take it for you.
Yeah, you gotta send it to me.
Okay, right. And so, in closing, Delmar Saxton was the I played that old man so many times on Jack Spence Tornadoes that it was like if I didn't play him, it's like I didn't play in the tournament. And I got to where I realized something not too long ago. I was looking up Delmar Saxton, and I was looking up how old he was. And I thought when I was playing him when I was a teenager, well, this guy's got to be like 80, you know. He wasn't. He was in his mid-60s. And so now I'm older than what Delmar was then, and that just makes me feel better. So, but yeah, I played Delmar a lot, and I've played a lot of other guys in the Hall of Fame. It was an honor to play all. So, thanks. And at the end, go bigger.
I'll tell one quick story about Richard. It won't be bad. Lord, I want you to yell at Richard because I was studying the Alabama defense one time there, and Richard hid my book from me for over weeks. Slid it under the mattress in my bedroom.
I did?
Never again.
I don't remember that.
Cruel.
If you say so, okay, I don't remember that.
Okay.
All right.
No wonder I
Fine.
won.
I'm going to sit down.
Okay, I'm gonna sit down. Thanks, John.
You're welcome. All right, next up is Paul Rockauer. Paul started playing chess in the late 80s, became a strong player while attending Brownell Talbot. He won many state and national honors and became a national master. He won 3 straight high school championships. In 1991, he won the National Junior Championship, and in 1994, the Denker National High School Coaching Champion. He won many local tournaments. After high school, Paul went to college in Indiana, where he ISU succeed rating of over 2,300. And I believe Paul is the youngest player to ever reach master in Nebraska. Well done, Paul. And I just tell one quick story. I was actually glad, well, two quick stories. I never met Paul till the first time I played him, and somehow I managed to beat him, but I knew I would never beat him again, and I never did. And then after Paul left for Indiana, I was actually glad because we only lived about 4 blocks away, and I was the strongest player in the zip code again. So anyway, congratulations, Paul.
Gonna get it. You still awake?
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Lauren, you were very kind to me at the World Open many, many years ago to go over some games with me. I appreciate it. And thanks for doing this. I know it's been a long night and we've been here, but I'll tell you this is the first time I've been to Nebraska in 6 years since COVID. I spent the afternoon in a retirement home just seeing family and friends. It was really rewarding. And very glad to come out and be here for this. I want to tell you, so Brown Talbot, there was no one playing chess there. It was a 6th grade teacher, Dan Frost, who just did a little extra and started coming in early and staying late and having kids to play chess. I don't know if anyone here is affiliated with Brown, but there's no chess there anymore since he's retired, and I just saw Dan at the retirement home. He's doing very well. But it just kind of shows you that roads in life take a little detours every now and then. And so, to Rod, who mentioned autodidact, my family doesn't play chess. I actually saw the people in 6th grade playing chess and wanted to know how to do it, so I went to the library, got a book, taught myself, and started playing chess. Started playing chess at the library, which the new library in Ohio looks very nice. Saw it on the way here. And this was before the internet, so to bring it back to Jim Collins and Bill Lombardi, I did okay, enough to get a phone call from Jim back in the day before cell phones, and he wanted me to be a Collins kid and to travel to Russia and represent the U.S. That did not happen. Instead, we played Iceland a couple times in the Catskills, where I met lifelong friends and really fell in love with New York City. Enough, I stayed right around the Upper West Side area and was fortunate enough to actually go to school there. And you know what I told Columbia in the letter that I said I wanted to go there. I literally grew up loving chess and going to New York to play there. For the grandmasters that are here, U.S. Chess would send lucky enough people to go to New York City and be trained. So Edmar Mendes, if you remember him, spent several summers going to his classes. And Dvoretsky, if everyone here knows the Endgame book and things like that, right at the fall of the wall, they brought him over to train us, and so we all got to spend several weeks with him in New York. That was a really rewarding experience. I was reading his book on the plane here. It is an excellent book. He's a nice guy. And Mike Blankenau was very kind enough to coach me back then. I haven't seen him in 30 years, so it was very nice to shake your hand again. Again, it's just a really simple thing. Dan Frost, teachers in life, show you what can happen. And I now live in Los Angeles and work in AI like everyone else, and doing fun things and having a nice time. But thank you very much. I'm going to stick around and play the tournament this weekend, and I enjoy seeing all of you. Many of you I have read in the Gambit while coming here, so it's nice to put a name to the face. Cheers. Thank you.
Next, Ron is going to introduce our next two inductees.
Plus with Nebraska players several times.
So I've got to find the print that was large enough for me to be able to read.
No, this is not very inspiring. You just drove me from the airport in Omaha.
I wore my glasses.
You can't see.
I wore my glasses.
Oh.
I'm not wearing my glasses
Then
now.
reading glasses.
So on the for the Hall of Fame people, these chess pieces that are the centerpieces for the tables, those are all for you. So just grab your favorite piece, hopefully. Hopefully there'll be enough to go around. I like the knights, even though they're short. A lot of characters. Well, let me introduce the order I have is both are Mike. I guess it's interchangeable, but I'll start with Mike Blankenau. Mike's been among the stronger players in Nebraska chess history, going back to the Fisher boom that we've mentioned so many times. He played for the legendary Omaha Central teams that Rich mentioned. Those teams just dominated Nebraska chess and did very well nationally. And then he graduated, and as we mentioned before, graduated to the University of Nebraska team, which was also a powerhouse. And then ended up making the top 25 under 21 list, which, Rich, that was one of our criteria. Otherwise, we'd have been on that. That's, we just had to have some fixed rules, you know. And so Mike, just extraordinary achievements as a teenage player. He became a rare master, as we mentioned, in a multi-state region where it was really quite a deal to be a chess master. People would ask for your autograph and travel to play you in a assignment. Remember that they got paired with you, a big deal. And he peaked at 2,400 strength and became a life master. He won consecutive state championships in 1993 and 1994, and was a 3-time champion of Omaha, including when he was just in high school. Outside Nebraska, he defeated and drew many titled players in top national tournaments. You find him at the World Opens and the U.S. Opens, representing Nebraska very well. I was glad to hear, Paul, that you acknowledged that he had coached you, because that was one of the things that I was going to mention, that he coached you, and I believe it's safe to say Keaton as well. And Mike was a coach at Brownell Talbot. Known for a very sharp style and calculating ability. Great speed chess player, which I've been reminded of when he comes over to the house and plays. Even now, I can't keep up. And we couldn't end without mentioning ChatGPT's opinion of Mike, which is that he has great analytic ability in chess, backgammon, and poker. All three. So Mike, truly great achievements, and if I could just say on a personal note, something I'm going to say about Mike Matthews too, is I was an only child and had the pleasure to be around some guys who were a few years older and were charismatic and brilliant people. Lauren, Mike Matthews, Mike Blankenau, later Elliot Winslow, and you guys made a big difference in my life, and I want to thank you personally just for that. So congratulations, Mike, on your induction. Would you like to say a few words, Mike?
Thank you very much. I only had one story, and Rich related it already. It was a trip to Maryland, which I do remember, and getting stuck in the snowstorm having to sleep in the car, and listening to Machine Head from Deep Purple. And got to meet a lot of great people through chess. It's always kind of been an anchor for me to something that I could go to at any point in my life. And I really appreciate the honor.
Can I get you to just hold up for a second for a picture? There we go.
More picture.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Well, Mike, it's a great privilege to induct you. I enjoyed thinking back over all the years and thinking about what to say to you and about you. Mike was a mainstay of Nebraska chess in the 1970s and 1980s before he moved away. As a player, he won many local tournaments and again represented us well nationwide, winning a U.S. class championship along Prix. Most notably, he was the champion of Nebraska in 1978, Lincoln City champion in 1980. And he was also on the Lincoln Logs telephone team. I don't know that we've mentioned that last year or this year much, but
I'm going to mention when I get to Bart.
you know, we used to play against you know, the other really big cities and did quite well for ourselves. And Mike was on that. He also played on the Pan Am teams that we talked about, the University of Nebraska Pan Am teams a couple times. And he ended up reaching an expert rating and at least expert strength. But beyond a player, Mike was a major organizer. Started very early as president of what chess club? Lincoln East High. Lincoln East High Sparks. There's somebody at every table here from Lincoln East High. Mike, you know, the school started in '69. Mike was there leading it pretty soon thereafter. He became the president of the Lincoln Chess Foundation, which exists today and is putting on events like this, president of the Nebraska State Chess Association, and the Nebraska voting representative to the United States Chess Federation. Mike directed many local tournaments, and also mentioned he was an editor of the Gambit that you've heard about. So Mike's very modest. He told me earlier that, wow, you know, didn't know if he deserved being in the Hall of Fame or words to that effect, but I told Mike what the last sentence was going to be after recounting all of those things, and that is that few have contributed so broadly to Nebraska chess. So Mike, it's a great honor, and I hope you caught the things I said earlier about you personally, and I break up if I said anything more. So congratulations.
Well, the good news is I didn't prepare any remarks. The bad news is all the stories I've been hearing kind of inspired me. We had lots of memorable times. You know, 1973, Rodney, Brad, Lauren, and I went to the U.S. Junior Open. And, you know, besides memorable chess games, we chased elevators, kept waited until the last minute to get to the rounds. And, you know, it was a real bonding time. And what I've heard tonight, and I want to emphasize, is we look around the room at people that were playing when I was. And Rodney, and Brad, and Kent, and Gary, and Lauren, and all these others, we were kind of like a band of brothers. We supported each other. I mean, we played to kill each other, but whenever one of us would win, we rejoiced in their win too. And that's something I've never experienced professionally or anywhere else, but very tight-knit group, and I've kept in contact with a lot of these people over the years. And I am deeply honored to be here. I feel I now walk among the gods and goddesses of chess in Nebraska. So I thank you very much.
Hold the plaque up to a picture.
Yeah, can you hold it up for a picture here? Sorry. I know it's late. I had to get up. There we go. Thank you much. Gotcha.
All right, our last presenter is Lauren Schmidt.
Oh, we're skipping one. Yeah.
Since we don't have Liz up on the board, maybe I should do Bruce next instead of Gary.
Both out.
Yeah, I'm just doing this. What do you next? Since you guys were co-champions. I have 3 folks that I want to introduce, all people that I nominated. The next one is Bruce Draper. They actually had Gary on top, I'm sorry Gary, but after Mike, you gotta do Bruce next because they were co-national champions. So, anybody who's been to the events the last few years or deals with the Nebraska Chess History web pages or the Omaha Chess Archive or the Gambit or any of these other things knows Bruce a little bit. But I will mention something before I read the card that I have here. Mike and Bruce and Brad and Gary and a few other people in the room here were all part of the Nebraska Union Chess Theory group. It wasn't just chess theory. We spent, along with people like Mike Chess, we spent a whole lot of time playing games at the Nebraska Union instead of studying or going to class. And it was chess. We played bridge. We played a large amount of Dungeons and Dragons. And some people regret these things. Some people don't regret them quite as much.
Spoons.
And I would get to spoons. But on the chess side of things, part of that has led to the fact that we had large relationships outside of chess, doing other games, doing other activities, and traveling to tournaments and such. So we were that close-knit band of brothers that Mike was talking about. And we were all connected up. And it's kind of funny because these guys, the last two here, went to East. I was a Northeast player. But I almost forget that in the past now because it was like we were together for years in this time. All of these guys were essential to it, as well as some others of you that know, and there's others that have departed, like Mike. But Bruce got his start playing at Lincoln East in Nebraska, and played in those Lincoln leagues that we played, which were like quadruple round robins on 8 boards. And Bruce is, as I mentioned, trying to restore some of that. He moved on as his career went on to winning Midwest Opens and city championships. He was a member of the University of Nebraska team at a number of events, including ones that the next guy I'll mention as well. Bruce and Gary, along with Mike Chess and I, traveled to a number of American College Union International regional championships. And these guys were fixtures on these teams and did quite well. His chess career as a player is that's more than 50 years old. But early on, like a lot of you guys, he moved into also doing those other behind the scenes things that we guys have mentioned a lot with people like Mike or some of our earlier inductees. Bruce has played in more than 300 Nebraska tournaments. That's a lot. quite a few. And he's been a Nebraska-based player his whole life, whereas many of us have moved off to other places. Bruce has been here. There were some periods when, as he mentioned, for career or family and things, you have to drop out of chess for a while. But staying as a Nebraska player for that whole time, he won 4 Omaha City Championships, reached an expert rating, qualified for a number of Nebraska state finals, and as noted, shared a national title with Mike, playing in the National Class Championships in Chicago. But that's only a small part of who Bruce is. He has been a tournament organizer and director. And those are not small things. Somebody has to organize all those tournaments and direct all those tournaments. And it's especially, you're wanting to play in tournaments, and the rules like you can't play in a tournament that has more than X number of players, and also be the director and the organizer and everything else. So you have to convince somebody else to do it, or you don't get to play. And so there's always that's always a drawback, a drawdown for those of you who serve extensively as directors and organizers. Sometimes you just don't get to play when you'd like to. He's been editor, not just of the Gambit, but Omaha Chess Archive. And whatever else have you been an editor of?
The archive started in '92.
Yeah.
And then I started it up again in 2023, and still putting it out every month. And then the Gambit.
Right.
Those are the only 2 that I can.
And you're the grand poobah of the Nebraska Chess History page on Facebook, which is significant and probably takes a lot of time. Yeah, it's just a bit.
If it weren't fun, I wouldn't do it.
Some people have different ideas of fun, apparently. In 1991, founded the Southwest Suburban, I always have to look this up because I always want to pronounce it something else. Southwest Suburban Omaha Chess Association. They get it right finally?
Sounds fancy, doesn't it?
It does. Affiliate which has run more than 110 events since the time you founded, including the Great Plains Open, which is a major Nebraska annual event. He's been a leader in the Lincoln Chess Foundation, the Nebraska State Chess Association, serving as president as well as other officers, been the national delegate, founded the Hall of Fame. So I guess it's appropriate you finally get to be in it. That's the only reason you organize it, so sooner or later they'll let me in too.
They're getting desperate.
He came back to chess recently, a few years ago. He realized it was defunct, which is why there's so many back people to honor. There were a number of years they didn't honor anybody, and they never gave us the plaques for us old people who'd been honored years before. They saw to it, both last year and this year, that people who were attending, who were former inductees, got to receive their awards. So I don't think we'll ever have a Hall of Fame class, induction class that's as large as this one. So fewer speeches the next time they have one. But at this point, we're sort of tied up here. Since the return of Bruce and a couple of other people here that have been mentioned, particularly Rod Malpert, to organizing and sponsoring events. As they mentioned earlier, the big ones that have been working on this event tirelessly, Rod, of course, Gary, and Bruce. And that all this event, all these things here wouldn't have been possible without them. And as I wrote when I made his nomination, in short, Bruce Draney ticks every box on the Nebraska Chess Hall of Fame scorecard and truly deserves his selection to the Nebraska State Chess Hall of Fame. And Laserbeast too.
Give myself a handshake here.
I'm sorry, Bruce. I forgot
supposed to stay up there. I was thinking, oh, I'm done now, but I have 2 more to go. Bruce, thank you.
Yeah. All right, and I'm going to keep my remarks, you know, I can sometimes be long-winded and I don't want to take any more time, but first of all, this is sort of like a dream come true for me. And when I started this Hall of Fame in 1996, I guess I was thinking, well, maybe someday, you know, they'll think I'm good enough to get into this thing, but, you know, you have to earn it. You can't just establishing it wasn't enough to put me up here. I think that I've got so many funny stories that, and you know, memorable stories that have happened over the years from my chess friends and all the people, all the trips we went on, all the crazy things that happened. You know, some of the things that you know, we encountered in Kansas City at the Show Me Open, and our trip to Chicago in 1976, where Mike Matthews and Brad and Lauren and I were driving in my '69 Pontiac Le Mans, and around about Bettendorf, Iowa, my car just stopped working. And it was like something like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're thinking, okay, well, Brad wasn't registered yet. So, and this was like the class championship, so it's the first one they ever had. And so we got towed into Bettendorf, and we found a mechanic, and they fixed my car, and Brad was the only one who had any money. I mean, the rest of us were college, were you know, like poor. Yeah. we had just paid for, we had a room for all of us. We were all staying in one room, you know, because that was how chess players were. We just all slept in the same hotel room, you know, to save money. So Brad paid for the car repair because he was the only one who had any cash, and we didn't have credit cards. And so we got on the road, and we were still a couple hundred miles from Chicago, but we were on the eastern side of Iowa. And I'm thinking, well, you know, I hope we can get there in time for Brad to get into the tournament. So we pulled into this really spooky car garage across the street from the Palmer house, and these people who ran this garage were kind of like crazy. This is kind of another story in itself. But so Brad literally ran across the street to the Palmer house because we were past registration time. And so he gets in there and they still aren't done. So they were still registering people because there were hundreds of people and they didn't have computers back then. So rounds never started on time. That was the standard, you know, rule about chess tournaments, especially big ones. So Brad got into the tournament, and Mike and I entered the Class B, and Lauren couldn't play because he was a master, and they didn't have a master section because it was just the first one.
Yeah, his first one was just class.
Yeah, it was a class championship.
I was just hanging out.
So Lauren just went around and you know, kind of looked at who was playing whom, and especially in the Class B, because 2 of us were in Class B, Lauren went around and looked at all the games and saw who opened with what opening and things like that. And so I just remember this one game where Lauren showed me this line from the Fromm's Gambit. Right. Because he said this guy played the Fromm's, or played against the birds. And so I played this line, and we played it out like 26 moves. And I got to about move 27. I said, I don't know what to do. So I ended up sacking back the exchange. It was a really wild line, and so it ended up a draw. So I was a half point behind Mike going into the last round. And I had so many lucky things happen in that round. I remember one guy in time pressure dropped his queen or something, or fell into a mate. He had a win, and he got in time pressure, and he made a mistake, and I won instead. And so I ended up with 3.5 points going into round 5. And Mike had 4 points going into round 5. And so Mike was paired against another guy with 4. And they, of course, agreed to quick draw McGraw, you know. And
It went 13 moves.
13 moves.
Fought it out.
Difficult chess. So Mike had already clinched a tie for first and there was another guy that scored 4.5, and he was tied for first. And I'm sitting here with a really drosh looking game against a 1600 player from Chicago. And he says, would you like a draw? And I said, well, you know, if I take a draw, I'll have only 4. I'll probably win like 20 bucks, something like that. So I said, well, let's play out a couple more moves. Well, the next move, he dropped a piece. So Lady Luck was definitely with us. Mike and I tied for first place. We won $250, enough to pay Brad back for the car repair, and still have enough money to, and $250 in 1976, I looked it up on the inflation calculators, worth about $850 today. So.
And you guys each gave me $5 for being your second.
Yeah, that's right.
Score big.
Well, we let you stay in our hotel room.
Yeah, I know, I was sitting on the floor.
That's your meals too.
Yeah. But anyway, that was, so I guess my special memories would be that tournament in particular, and then probably my other special memory would be just having the pleasure of planning these last 2 years of these special events with Rod, and you know, he and I got together constantly over the phone, and he would say what he wanted, and I would say, are you sure you want to spend that much? And he'd go, yeah, I do. And then he'd say, I want to spend more. And so I said, okay, it's your money. And so he'd say, well, you do all the work and I'll pay for it. So that's kind of how it worked out. So we make a good team. And I just like to thank, you know, the people who thought I was worthy of being in this group, because it's really important to me, and it means a lot to me. So thank you very much for
Thank you, Bruce. Did you hold your trophy up to yourself?
I didn't win the trophy. They spelled my name wrong in Chess Life, too.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that.
I looked it up.
Trophy on tiger.
Yeah, because you were the fourth one. Yeah.
He got the trophy.
Well done. Congratulations. The next person, and next to last person of the new inductees, is Gary Colvin. And Gary, like Bruce, has contributed as a player, an organizer, a director, an editor, and author. He got his start playing in Nebraska high school championships, just like many of the other people that we've been introducing you to, or they've been talking about. Then he moved on to the Midwest Opens, city championships events. He went to West Side, so he's not one of those South players or those Central players. He's that whole other group that they had, which, as Gary and I were talking about yesterday, apparently for some reason, Jack Spence thought that all of them needed to play me. So every event that Jack played, if they were in there, every round I'd be playing one of the West Side guys. It wasn't anything bad against me. It was you, I think. Jack had his little eccentricities, but was a major person. Once he got to UNL, he decided to destroy his grade point average by hanging around the Union, playing games with us. But he also became a key member of several Nebraska teams. As I mentioned, he and Bruce both played along in the ACUI, the American College Union International tournaments, along with Mike Chess and myself. But he also played on one of our, he played on multiple Pan Am teams, including scoring 6.5, 1.5 on our team from 1977 after the Chess brothers had graduated. And we went in with Mike Blankenau on third board and John Rose, who was here last year, on second board, and I was on first. We tied for second place, which was a big surprise to people because Mike and Rich were gone. But we still did a second place tie, which was outstanding. And as I said, Gary's 6.5 points on board 4 was a large part of that. He was board 1, I don't remember which year, the 1980 Pan Am Nebraska team played board 1. He, bringing up another thing that we need to mention here, was also a member of the various Lincoln Telephone League teams. Back before we even had the internet leagues, for several years, there were telephone chess leagues. And I'll mention a little bit more than my next person, Bart Lewis, because Bart was instrumental in that. But we play by telephone with, you'd be sitting at your board, and your clock would only be recording your own time. And they'd have a runner that ran the move to your board, pushed your clock, made the move, pushed your clock, and then waited for you to move to run it back. As you can imagine, the games ran longer because all that running time in between there. And a lot of our players that we've been mentioning here, Ridge and Mike Chess and others we haven't talked about, but I think Mike Blankenau played at least one time, or Rod played in a number of these matches as well. But Gary was a member, especially after the second year when they became the Lincoln Logs. Originally they were the Lincoln Mid-Americans, but then somebody could not resist. And they became the Lincoln Logs. So Gary represented Nebraska, and in those events where some of them we were quite successful. Let's see, what's he won? Continued playing after after college. Got his rating to a peak of 2166. That's pretty high. He won a state championship. He won a state rapid transit championship. Won the Cornhusker State Games, gold. Won a Midwest Open, and placed high in many regional events. As Gary once mentioned to me, that he would get his rating up by going and playing in the tournaments in Missouri and Kansas and Iowa, and then he'd come back and lose points in Nebraska. It's definitely the way it was back in that era. But as I mentioned, he's not just a chess player. He contributed to Nebraska Chess as an organizer and a director for more than 60 tournaments and events, especially in the 1980s and 90s, when a lot of us moved away to go to college or for work, and there still needed to be a core, and it was the people like Mike and Bruce and Gary that kept things going during that period. Served as an editor and contributor to the Gambit. He was honored by the Lincoln Chess Foundation for his contributions in 1985, receiving an Outstanding Services Award for his work up to that point. I won't say what Gary said to me yesterday about what he thought after our first game that we played. But it was an interesting moment. We were playing in the Midwest. We were both high school age players, and I played like 3 Omaha West Side players in that event. Maybe all my wins were against Omaha West Side players. That year I lost to Spence in the last round. But the game was winding down. Gary was in an unfortunate position, and he rolled out a check, and me being sarcastic young Lauren as I was, and probably still am. That's it. Spike check. And Gary goes with a statement I still remember today because how true it was. Is, well, I guess I can spike check if I want to. You are right. That's absolutely good. So, no insult then, Gary. I immediately relented as it being some kind of insult to you and allow you to state your universal truth. I can spike check if I want to. And I've held to that principle the rest of my chess career. So thank you, Gary, for that. Gary.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Gary. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to tell you what I told him yesterday.
Oh, you told him that?
No, I am going to tell you is that I didn't know Lauren or his sense of humor.
at all. So when he said this about the spike check, afterwards I told my teammates, I go, God, that guy's a jerk. So I actually, like I say, then I found out later when in college he was actually okay. So yeah, exactly.
Just okay.
Yeah, just okay. So the thing is that you come here and you get something. There's so many people you have to thank. First of all, the last year's Hall of Fame search committee. Thanks so much for picking me. I greatly appreciate it. Then the people who have done this weekend tournament 3 days, and then last year were Bruce Straney and Rod Malpert. And the thing is that of the scale of the three of us, I was number 3 by a long card. It was the two of them. Bruce did most of the work. Rod produced most of the money and did also work, and I did whatever was left. So, but I did some things, but whatever. So without these guys, we would be here tonight, we would be playing this weekend. So the thing is that, you know what, when you play chess and stuff, you know, a number of people play chess and they go to high school or college and then they quit. And I continued playing for a number of reasons. And I was inspired by 2 people who really inspired me to play and to give back to chess. And the first person was Anton Silvitz. And yes, Anton, that, you know, again, people who are not chess players could think it's fun. But I mean, I was a member of the West Side chess team, and we just came 50 miles down to Lincoln to play my first tournament. And just the excitement of going with your teammates and stuff and traveling down to do this was fun. And so Anton was tournament director with his kids who always helped him out. So for 3 years I did that, had great times. So I go, when I'm in college, let's go ahead and try to continue the tradition. So I did that. So he's really the one that got me going on that. So if he were here tonight, which I wish he could be, he'd probably just say, oh, Gary, it's no big fat deal. For those who know him, you know what I'm talking about. Okay.
It's a big fat hairy deal. Though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They gradually add up.
Okay.
It starts as just a big deal. And
And the second person who inspired me to continue is Lauren. Yes, Lauren. Is that when I came down to the Lincoln Chess Club, again, people who don't play chess think, oh, chess so boring and stupid, whatever. It was fun. We just got this. It was so much fun. And Lauren was either assistant editor or editor, basically he did anything anyway. But he would bring the gambits in. And I still remember the excitement. He'd have the boxes of the gambits we had put together, and we had this big honker of a stapler and we would use to staple all the pages together. And so we're sitting there going, oh, who got in? Whose games are in? What tournaments? What's your rating? And just to put this all together and to do this was a great thing. And then also what Lauren has talked about for the Pan Am tournaments is that without him and Bart Lewis, they put together 6 teams in the 70s. And again, back then, it wasn't all the grandmasters like it is now. It was just regular people like us. And so we played on this thing. So to be able for them to put together and to play on a college team, I love playing on teams. It was a great pleasure. Then the last thing I want to do is to say that all the things and all whatever, I made 2 really great friends, lifelong friends in chess. And the first was Al Lawrence. And Al Lawrence lived in Lincoln for 3 years, and then he moved on to bigger and better things. And he was an executive director at United States Chess Federation in the 90s. And
he didn't forget you.
And you know, when he moved off, he goes, oh, keep in touch. I go, oh yeah, everyone says that. We kept in touch and we became close friends. And all the things, if you know Al, what he's done, I mean, he was the executive director. He's written 21 chess books. He's gone ahead and written many articles for Chess Life. And he founded the World Chess Hall of Fame in Miami, and before it moved to St. Louis. And also right now, he's president of U.S. Chess Trust. And the thing that was important to me, though, was he became my good friend. And I love playing in teams. I played on 5 United States amateur team tournaments in Jersey, including last year. And he and his lovely wife, Daphne, who are a fantastic couple, they just became my great friends. So to Al, thank you so very much. Then the last person that I want to talk about is, guess what? Kent Nelson. Kent Nelson is, I came down to Lincoln, you know, to play university, and just had fun at the chess club. And Ken and I just hit it off. We just became good friends. And it just continued on. And the thing is how good friends we are, that we've lived together 3 different times, and we're still talking to each other. You know, that's something. So like this. And then also, just all the chess tournaments we went together, all the vacations we went on together. And to have someone with him backing me up, so important. So thank you, Jim. Thank you, Ken, for that. And lastly, you know what, here we are, ending this evening and all this stuff. It's like, what is all the point of all this? And I think one of the point is that I was inspired by people to give back to chess and do things. And I hope the people sitting in this audience and the people who will be playing chess this weekend will also be inspired by all this. So 50 years from now, when I probably won't be here, but 50 years from now, that people will still be playing chess in Nebraska. Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Oops, gotcha.
Falling down.
The last person on Hall of Fame list, who was originally, as Rod said, scheduled to be here tonight, remotely, is no, there's a special word there. That's a different one. But this is my very dear old friend, but I have not had contact with him until recently for many, many years. Bart Lewis. And I mentioned him already earlier when I said that the first thing to say about Bart Lewis is, in fact, he is one of the coolest Prix I've ever known. So on the cool scale, he's right up there. But if you've ever played Bart or analyzed with Bart, it was all full of things from those eras, cultural references and so on. But I still remember him calling a dangerous piece or pawn. He'd use the Mad Magazine reference that this little Nurmlinger over here is posing some problems. Bart was a good player. Those old cross tables that Bruce puts out there, Bart shows up on them as a high school kid. He played in that 54 U.S. Junior that Fischer was in. He beat Fischer in the Blitz tournament. At least that's what I heard. No one else has impeached it since then. So, and he finished with the same score as Fischer in the actual event. So, pretty darn good. He, like a lot of people, left chess for a while to, for some reason, have jobs and careers and families and things like that. But he returned in a big way to thinking about chess organization there in the early 70s. And he was instrumental behind a number of things, specifically the 1975 US Open. You guys got that little blurb from Bud Narveson, where he's talking about the importance of Bart Lewis. But I can say for sure that Open wouldn't have happened without Bart. Because Bart, being in the advertising agency and publishing a local magazine and everything, had the connections. So a lot of those connections slipped away after that, after Bart left or moved out of the situation, and became a lot harder to do those things. But at that point, we had Bart and a few other people who were able to make those connections, raise the funds. Bart was the first person I ever met who had a circle drive in front of his house, so you could come up and do valet parking. Inside the house, he had a spiral staircase in the front entryway. Bart was impoverished. But well, that only leads to remembering after one round in the Lincoln City that Bart was playing in, we went over to Bart's house afterwards, and he was talking about, you know, times are really hard now. You know, I'm afraid we're going to have to make lobster helper. So he had the sense of humor. He had the dashing good looks. He, as I mentioned, revitalized the gambit, but he didn't stop with just, hey, I've done this U.S. Open, and that's it. As they were mentioning, he was then instrumental for those Pan Am teams. He'd already started donating and raising money. So in that period, starting in 1972 through 1977, teams continued after that, but 72 through 77, we wouldn't have had those teams if it weren't basically for Bart. Bart donated a large part of the money. It didn't take that much to send a team to the Pan Am, but entry fees and hotel rooms and transportation, all of those kinds of things. None of us had any money, so that wasn't happening. But Bart made sure that we had the money. I will mention on the side, in the mid-1970s, after I had hit my master title and we'd won the Pan Am, I got an invitation to play finally in one of those futurity tournaments that they had. Well, I didn't think I could go because I didn't have any money, so I'd already turned it down, and Bart gave me a check to go to the tournament, and I said, well, Bart, I'm going to have to give this back to you. And Bart said, no, use it for another event that you can't afford to play in. So I went to the U.S. Class Championships a few years after that one that now had a master section, and Rod was playing there and Victor Booples, and Bart paid for my hotel, basically, for me to go to that tournament. And just out of the goodness of his heart. It wasn't even the tournament I'd been invited to originally, but he didn't want to take the money back. And when we wanted to get in the National Chess League, Bart arranged with Mid-American Insurance, which was right down the street from his ad agency, that we could use their facilities after hours and play our matches there. And he helped support some money to get occasionally other strong players to play. I mean, mostly I was playing first board, but we had a few other times when I think maybe Mark's played board one for us one time, and a few others, so that we were competitive, and we actually beat Los Angeles and some of these other big cities. Yeah, whoa, Lincoln. So we had good results in that period, and some of our players that are represented here, like Rod and Gary and so on, and then continued with the logs after that. I unfortunately moved away at that point, and trainer that I was played for the Indianapolis team the next year. I'm sorry, I'm a mercenary. They didn't pay me either, but
Do you find you're running out of eligibility at Lauren in any school?
Well, they changed the rules at the Pan Ams, probably as a result of myself and one of the Chicago Masters, because we each played like 10 years in the Pan Am, and they just, well, okay, we're going to have an eligibility rule. Before it was just as long as you're a full-time student.
Yeah.
So I played for 6 for Nebraska and 4 for Purdue. And finished Stockton a number of times. So, but Purdue never won, so Nebraska's better. The last few things to say about here. As saying, you defeated Fisher and played there, I mentioned that already. Bruce notes that he's been sharing some anecdotes and stories that Bruce has published in recent issues. So Bruce, if he wants to, can share more of these. He was still playing in tournament chess, at least into the late 1970s, because I played Bart in the Organizers Invitational in 1970, my last Nebraska tournament that I played in. And Bart unfortunately didn't take over the financing of that tournament, as Mike and others can attest. Bart wasn't a part of that. Don't blame Bart. But he did play in the tournament. He peaked in his rating in the high class A, but that was in an era where a lot of the guys we look back on from the 50s and 60s, and they, oh, those guys were master level players, but ratings were lower. So my guess is he was probably an expert level player at his peak. He raised money, organized, schmoozed, did everything he did to make Nebraska chess better. And as I said, I looked up to Bart a lot. And unfortunately he's not live here, but they're recording this, and they're supposed to let Bart get a chance. Otherwise, I'd be saying to him right now, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Bart. In my own chess career, you were a big help, a big influence, and made a difference for me as well as some of the other players here. Yeah, I think that's everything I need to say about Bart. Is anyone receptive on behalf of Bart?
I'd like to accept this award for Bart on behalf of Bart. We wanted to give Gary and Ken a chance to say something here about a project they've got going on, and then we'll be done. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see all of you. Thank you for coming. Years ago, when John Watson moved to California, he asked me to take the reins of the presidency of the Lincoln Chess Foundation. And I inherited quite a bit of paperwork, mostly tax forms and articles of incorporation and other information pertaining to the Lincoln Chess Foundation. But I also inherited a great many photographs of players from the lost generation, players from the 50s, players from the 60s. Now, Bob Woodworth has been very nice and helped me identify some of these players. But like, for example, I would have photographs like this, and I would have a pretty good idea of the date of the photographs, but I would have no idea who the players were, So I want to make sure that this class and the previous classes of the Hall of Fame players are well documented and identified. So to this end, Gary and I were talking, and we were thinking about collaborating on a new book, a book about Nebraska Chess Hall of Fame players. And so to this end, to achieve that objective, Gary has come up with a list, which I'll ask Gary to elaborate on. And my request to the Hall of Fame players inducted tonight is please consider providing some bio information, autobiography information about your life and chess career.
Okay, everybody, that we came up with this list and actually got input from a number of different sources, including Kent and Bruce and whatever on this. And it's 28 questions, and basically it's just some basic facts and then some games and whatever you like to put on this. And again, we ask you to do it. You don't have to fill out all 28, but fill out at least part of it. And then on the top part, we're going to send this via email to everybody. I got some paper copies. So, but on the top of this is Kent's email address. So when you fill it out, you can shoot it off to Kent, and we can start working on the book. And the thing is that we're intending take 2-3 years or whatever after this. We're asking you to do this by the end of the year. And take 2 or 3 years, and everyone in the Hall of Fame will get a copy of our book. So that's the deal. So this book is for all the people, a lot of people in the room, and for some of the people not. And we appreciate if you take the time and effort to do this. Thank you.
I'd like to acknowledge Bob Woodward's contribution as Nebraska State Historical Archivist. Bob, you've done great work over the years, and you were also did a great job editing my latest book. So thank you for your service, not only to Nebraska Chess, but also for me personally. Thank you.
Rod, did you have some closing remarks that you wanted to make?
No, I don't think so. Just hope everybody have a wonderful.
And you didn't have any other prizes to give away or anything like that, right? Okay.
10 after 10.
Yeah, we're running a little late, so.
Isn't it true that Jason he was nominated and represented
No, all right. I did want to mention that we were going to recognize J.J. Lang, who is the Chess Life Online editor, because he won Journalist of America, or Chess Journalist of America Award this year, which is a pretty big honor. And so we give a round of applause to JJ for
Yeah, there you go. Yay.
What am I doing?
Making your speech.
Chess Journalist of America, we're recognizing you for that.
Thank you. It feels really nice to be recognized for being recognized by someone else and winning an award for that. I've been working with US Chess for a little over, somewhere between 2 years and 3 years. It feels like about 30. Doing that a few years after moving to Nebraska has been really special to have a bird's eye view on a lot of other local, regional, state chess scenes. And most of the people I wanted to say this to have gone to bed, but those states don't have anything like this. And until a year or two ago, we didn't really have anything like this either. But to be able to recognize the history, look to the past, and to see how that's inspired where we are now, I think is incredibly special. And I also hope we can continue looking to the future. And I just hope that some of the kids who are recognized tonight are here 50 years from now celebrating the 100th anniversary of this tournament. And
50th.
I hope they're here 50 years from now celebrating the 100th anniversary of the 1975 US Open.
Right.
And I hope that
Many players will be there.
and, I mean, I hope that all of you are there. But I also hope that those who are there have better memories to share than just meeting me. I hope that they have many national accomplishments to share. I hope that, and as we look to the future, I just hope we can find ways to continue encouraging the youth in Nebraska chess, clubs in Nebraska chess. This year, working with US Chess, I saw that at Super Nationals, Nebraska was one of maybe 5 states that didn't have any players playing in Super Nationals. And there's a lot of very reasonable reasons for that, like the tournament being in Orlando, the tournament being expensive, etc. But I would love for some of these players who are topping their rating lists to be at a tournament getting that experience and, you know, showing the rest of the country what Nebraska can do the way that people were talking about happening 50 years ago. And I hope we can continue to fight find ways to encourage and support that in the future, and how we can all work together for that. So thank you for everyone who's here and for sharing this experience, and I hope that keeps bringing us forward.
All right, thanks everybody for coming. Sorry that went a little bit long, but again, appreciate everybody showing up. And it was a really nice program.
Bruce, what do you want with our name tags? Do we wear it?
You can keep them if you want to.
Remember who you are.
You don't have to wear them tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
First round is at 9:30. There are comments in the, I think at 9 o'clock. Rod and I are gonna make some special announcements prior to the start of the first round. I just got an entry while I was sitting here, so somebody, I don't recognize the name. There were 71, but we've had a couple people drop out, and then Kevin Fleming isn't here, but I don't know if he's coming tomorrow or not. I mean, he said he was coming, but we don't know. But it looks like it's going to be close to 70. All right. Thank you.